Okay. I'm not quite ready now. I got unready all of a sudden. Okay, now I'm ready. Okay, welcome everybody. Hello. This is the regular meeting of the Encinitas City Council. It's Wednesday, May 25th, 2022 at 6:01 p.m. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, Councilmember Hensy.
Here.
Councilmember Kranz.
Here.
Councilmember Lyons.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Mosca.
Here.
And Mayor Blake Spear.
Meeting here. So here.
Record will show that all members of the City Council are present. And the Mayor, if you don't mind, before we move forward, I wanted to make two announcements. The first is that item 10B, which is the continuation of the safe parking lot, has been removed from the agenda by staff. And that has been continued. It will be rescheduled for June 15th City Council meeting. And then secondly, just for all those that are attendees, please do not raise your hand right now. Please put your hands down. What we will do is on every item, I will ask for public comment. And if you wish to speak on that item, then at that time, I will have you raise your hand. I will call speakers 3 at a time. You will be moved to panelists. And at that point, you will have the opportunity to unmute your microphone and enable your camera if so desired. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So now we're moving to our next item. Dad.
This is what he's doing.
Okay, Dad, I'm sorry. I have to run the meeting right now. The next item we have is a Pledge of Allegiance. So let's go ahead and move forward to that. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. So now we have our first presentation, which the Deputy Mayor is going to take the first presentation tonight.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And so tonight we have a proclamation before you, and it's for National Public Works Week 2022. And there's a bunch of, as is with all the proclamations, there are a bunch of whereases. So I'm going to read some of these whereases. And sorry if I drone on about this, but so here are some of the whereases. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of Encinitas. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are federally mandated first responders, and the engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, and water treatment and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for citizens, civic leaders, and the children in the city of Encinitas to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works, first responders, public works programs, and in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association and Canadian Public Works Association. And now, therefore, the Mayor of the City of Encinitas, along with the entire City Council, do hereby designate the week of May 15th through 21st of 2022 as National Public Works Week in the City of Encinitas, and urge all residents to join with the representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protect our national health, safety, and quality of life. And it's dated the 18th of May 2022, and it's signed by the Mayor and the entire City Council.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councilmember Mosca, Mayor, and members of council. As Interim Public Works Director, I'm here tonight along with John Ugrab, our Operations Superintendent, to happily accept the proclamation. Our Public Works folks are highly dedicated, professional, and do an amazing job. And I'm so glad that we're able to recognize them. They do so much for our city and the community. And we do have just a short video that we did put together to highlight what our Public Works Department does. So on behalf of the Public Works Department, thank you for the proclamation, and just a big shout out to our group. I'm so proud of all of our members of the team.
Thank you.
Our Public Works administrative staff work behind the scenes to ensure that those who perform vital work to keep our city functioning have the necessary support and resources. They provide management direction to field operations and have direct supervision of fleet and facility maintenance. The admin staff also manage the solid waste and recycling program, which supports the city's climate action plan goals through zero waste initiatives such as organics recycling.
Fleet maintenance is responsible for vehicle and equipment purchasing as well as maintaining all city and water district vehicles. The city currently maintains approximately 151 vehicles ranging from fire apparatus to electrics and hybrids. Since 2017, the city has been transitioning its fleet to zero and low emissions vehicles. To date, the city has 7 all-electric vehicles, 12 hybrids, 1 plug-in hybrid, and 56 vehicles and equipment that are fueled by renewable diesel. The Street Maintenance Division provides continuous maintenance of the city's right-of-way and related infrastructure. They help to ensure that city streets and sidewalks are safe and accessible to all. They maintain 172 miles of public roads, 350 miles of sidewalk, over 10,000 traffic signs, and over 3,000 streetlights that are all vital to public safety. The city's facilities group takes care of important public buildings, ensuring that city employees and residents have safe places to work, play, and gather, even during emergencies. They help to integrate security and safety measures and work alongside various contract services to meet the demands of the community. Facilities helps maintain 6 fire stations, 2 permanent lifeguard towers, and general parks infrastructure. They also maintain the Civic Center, City Library, Public Works Facility, and the Encinitas Community and Senior Center.
The city's Stormwater Management Division serves to protect and enhance the quality of local surface waters, including creeks, lagoons, and beaches along the Pacific Ocean with stormwater pollution prevention activities. Critical functions of the program include water quality monitoring, construction and commercial facility inspection and enforcement, residential response, clean water hotline management, and public outreach and education.
San Diego Water District is celebrating its 100th year anniversary in 2022. The district started as the San Diego Irrigation District in 1922, with less than a mile of redwood pipe from Lake Hodges and the San Diego Reservoir, and now maintains more than 170 miles of pipeline and over 12,000 service lines. The district has co-owned the San Diego Reservoir and Badger Filtration Plant since the 1970s, before Encinitas was an incorporated city. The district continues to ensure that customers have a safe and reliable water supply and works to adopt new proven technology that improves efficiency and enhances service. Wastewater Collections maintains over 190 miles of mains, 1,800 storm drain inlets, and more than 2,500 manholes that get wastewater back to the treatment plants where it's recycled or disposed. Their work includes cleaning sewer lines, clearing stoppages, repairing pipeline breaks, and emergency response, and much more. These unsung heroes make sure water keeps flowing in the right direction.
Our essential workers provide services that help ensure public safety within the Encinitas community. Even in uncertain times, the public can depend on the City of Encinitas Public Works Department and the San Diego Water District to keep things functioning safely and smoothly.
That was a very nice video. Yeah, it's really good to highlight that work. It's really important work in the city, and it's largely invisible to most people, including us, most of the time. So it's really great that you put that video together, and I'm glad that we're honoring you it this week. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. That was staff and Karen on the video. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council. And on behalf of everybody in Public Works, I just want to say thank you. And we appreciate being acknowledged for our work and our efforts. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Next, I'm going to ask Councilmember Kranz. He's going to handle the proclamation over Arbor Day.
Yes, thank you. I'm very proud to read this proclamation as as a strong advocate for the urban forest and the efforts that our city staff have been making to improve upon it. I really appreciate the opportunity to make this declaration, which begins with, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morgan proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is celebrated nationally in April to encourage Americans to maintain and replenish our country's orchards and woodlands. And whereas in California, we observe Arbor Day in March in recognition of famed horticulturist Luther Burbank, a native from Massachusetts who brought experimental plant breeding to California. His life's labor produced hundreds of plants and trees that have contributed to the natural splendor and food production in our state. And whereas trees provide shade and beautify our homes, neighborhoods, and communities, increase property values, enhance economic vitality of business areas, beautify our community, and are enjoyed by everyone. And whereas trees decorate our landscapes with rich colors, textures, and shapes, and they provide vital stability to our ecosystems by improving water and air quality, provide habitats for animals and plant life, prevent flooding and erosion. And whereas in Encinitas, trees are highly regarded and valued by the community, and wherever they are planted are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Catherine S. Blakespeare, Mayor of the City of Encinitas, along with all council members, proclaim April 30th, 2022 as Arbor Day in the City of Encinitas. And I appreciated the celebration of Arbor Day in the Cottonwood Creek Park. I have appreciated watching the depaving of the 101 in Leucadia as part of the first phase of streetscape. We removed approximately 4/10 of an acre of pavement from the median and other areas there. And the number is about 100 trees that have been planted in the median. And it's going to really be remarkable when it's all wrapped up. And it's especially going to be remarkable in 25 years when those trees mature. So again, thank you to staff who do a fantastic job of managing our urban forest.
And then, Mayor, I just want to double check with the attendees. Are there any speakers that wanted to speak on the proclamation for Public Works Week or for Arbor Day? Please raise your hand. Okay, there are no speakers on those two items.
Okay, Councilmember Lyons, would you like to make a comment about Arbor Day?
Well, thank you, Mayor Blakespeare. As Catherine knows, Luther Burbank is a relative of mine. He's my second great uncle. So I'm honored that his name was mentioned in this proclamation. Thank you. And thank you to Chris Kalstrand, our arborist, for all the hard work he does to support the objectives of Tree City USA and Arbor Day.
Well, that's a great segue into Chris Kalstrand, who is taking the next item.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. Our Arbor Day celebration was fantastic, and the city put a lot of effort into it, but it's really the community members that came out to help us plant over 50 trees at Cottonwood Creek Park this year. And so we are very thankful for such a caring and giving community to be part of this Arbor Day event. So I'll transition over to a presentation, I believe, from here. All right, so as we've done in previous years, what we've started doing is giving a state of the urban forest address. So this is a look back at the city of Encinitas' urban forest program for fiscal year 2020, so 2021. So it's the previous year, and before that we did 2019, 2020, et cetera. So this evening, I'll just be talking a little bit, an overview of our urban forest so we can just get an idea of what's out there. Talk a little bit about some of the tree maintenance numbers and activities that are happening throughout the city. Talk about canopy cover. It's something that we did a reanalysis of this last year, and that I'm working with the Urban Forest Advisory Committee on trying to potentially develop some new goals for the city and adding to the climate action plan. And then just moving forward, what can we do as a city just to progress our urban forestry program and start to grow and develop it even to be even better than what it is at current day. So just a quick overview of what we have going on out here. We have over 21,677 trees, which are maintained by the city of Encinitas. That includes both public works and parks trees. Over the last fiscal year, we increased that number by 218 trees. So that's removals plus plantings. We always try to ensure that we come out with a positive at the end of the year. The number of species is approximately the same. We're the same at 350. Genre has remained the same, 163. We have a super diverse urban forest, which was great because moving down, if there are any pests, diseases, things like that, the city's going to be well protected from those. Diameter inches, we're increasing, which is good. However, we're still at that moderately young to forest overall. We won't see a dramatic change in that until eventually we do a re-inventory where we can start seeing the growth that's actually happening on these trees. And then planting sites, which has been a task that we've been trying to get through for the last several years now. In 2019, 2020, we had over 3,500. We're down to 3,059 approximately at this point. So we've reduced that by about 419 trees. So we're trying to get trees in the ground and work with homeowners because oftentimes the public right-of-way falls into somebody's front yard and there's an opportunity to plant a tree there. So we're working with them to give them a tree if they would like them, and then give them options for those species in hopes that, you know, we're going to take care of it, but we'd like to actually plant this tree in your property. Top 5 tree species. I've talked about this every year, and queen palms, you know, we're around 10%. Mexican fan palms, 6%. Torrey pines, which are great, we have a super high percentage of those as compared to everything else. 4% may seem low, but it's significantly higher than the 0.1% that we have on a lot of other species. Pygmy date palms, 4%, and king palms at 4%. So you can see, as I've discussed in previous years, the palm trees are really a big part of our urban forest, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Potential planting locations, as I said, we have reduced that number, so we're down to 3,059. We've developed a program where we have door hangers now that we're working with the residents and going through the city, picking several neighborhoods, handing out door hangers, giving them choices for trees, and then asking them to give us a call. And if they don't want a tree, we try to get them to get a tree, but if not, then we know that we can remove that spot from the list as well. So tree maintenance, routine trimming. Last year we trimmed, just shy of 10,000 trees in the city. So it's showing that we're not necessarily trimming every single tree every year. We're focusing a lot of the times on those palms, which are heavy maintenance, as well as the eucalyptus every year because of the risk that can be associated with them. And then pruning other trees on an as needed basis. Removals, we did have 212. This is a combination of mostly smaller trees that have died. We've had some issues with pine decline from pine bark beetle and the drought that's currently occurring as well. Plant healthcare program, we've enrolled over 4,000 trees into this program to get into watering programs to take better care of our trees out in the system. We planted over 430 trees, which gave us a net new tree of 218, which is great. So we always want to be positive each year. In addition, this year, we redid the canopy analysis. The canopy analysis for 2020 was previously conducted using iTree. iTree was a method where it just scans and you drop a point and it asks you what it is. In 2020, the U.S. Forest Service released a statewide canopy cover assessment based on high resolution imagery and LiDAR data. Using this method is much more accurate and advanced to determine canopy cover. So it's free to download and it can be interpreted with minimal time and really produces a high quality assessment of the city. Based on that canopy cover assessment, let me back up. We have about 1,889 acres of tree canopy within the city. Overall, our city has 15% covered by this tree canopy, which is from a more accurate dialed in analysis using this Forest Service data. But one thing that we know is that are maintained within private property. So what does all this mean and how do we move forward? So moving forward, 2022 and beyond, it's continuing to grow our urban forests. We're scheduled to plant an additional 300 plus trees next fiscal year. We're going to work towards protection and replacement of tree canopy, working with the UFAC to start coming up with maybe recommendations for private property tree canopy replacement and preservation, things along those lines, getting higher replacement standards for the trees within the city. If we take down one big tree, does it always make sense to replace it with one small tree, or should we be taking a look at the canopy cover that's lost and going more into how we can replace that over time in a quicker fashion than just using one small tree? Really, and then develop achievable goals that can sustain and grow the urban forest. Continue using our best management practice and industry standards. We updated the administrative manual this year to bring it up to date. So anytime things are referenced, we're using best management practices, updated definitions, things along those lines. Young tree care, we're going to continue our young care program. The first 2 to 3 years of trees in the ground is their most important time to ensure the success. So we're putting in that effort. And then think long-term, right? We want to use long-lived trees that are going to support not you, not me, but our kids, future generations. And we want to make sure we're putting the right trees in the right locations, so they're not having to deal with the infrastructure issues that we're dealing with today. Again, that's planting appropriate species in the right locations. Utilize evergreen trees as appropriate. Evergreen trees, botanically, they're not pine trees. They're trees that have leaves all year round. So what we want with that is they're going to provide a benefit to the community all year. When deciduous trees, not that this is not what we want, but deciduous trees are going to drop their leaves, and so we don't gain the benefit of the shade during that time. So it behooves us to have shade and have trees working for us all year round. And then phase out invasive trees. As they come in, we don't replace them back. If we get a tree removal permit for, say, a Mexican fan palm, we don't replant one of those. We plant something that's going to benefit the community, because palm trees have very little in terms of ecological benefits. There's some associated with it, but they're not as significant as, say, an oak tree or a large deciduous tree out in the community. And so that's it for this year. Any questions? I'd be more than happy to answer from everybody. And, again, I really just want to thank the community for their voice with our trees. It's why we are where we are, and you all are super fantastic. So I'm grateful for the city of Encinitas and their citizens. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. I always like this presentation every year. It's like fascinating, and you do a really good job summarizing it for us. And it just really reinforces trees are so important to our community and to the electeds. And, we spend a lot of energy and time and thought on it. And it's just great to see that reflected back with presentations like this. So thank you so much. I see my colleagues with their hands up, so I'm going to go ahead and call on them. I'm not sure which of you went first, but I think it was Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Chris, and how impressed I am with you and the entire team. It always amazes me how much we're able to do in our community. I mean, we're not a large community, but we take pride in our tree canopy, and we do a lot to maintain it and to ensure that we're thoughtful in how we're planting new trees and looking at opportunities for planting even more trees. I mean, you can't travel an inch in this city and not see the new trees that have been planted. To think that we have 3,000 more spots that we can actually plant them, I think that's aspirational. There's a lot of benefits that we get from trees, and we can talk ad nauseum about all of the benefits. I mean, there's a lot of them, from the shade that you just mentioned. Having grown up on the East Coast and in an urban area, I remember when I was a kid, there were trees in the area, and it made you just, it just created such a nice atmosphere in the city, where you didn't have to just kind of look at the hard infrastructure. And recently I've had an occasion to go back and you see, where the lack of planning has really kind of caused a lot of that tree canopy to die off. And what you're left with is just the very cold kind of infrastructure, and it doesn't have that same warmth that it once had. And so I would add to the benefits that it really does kind of create a more vibrant and warmer community where people want to be outside and be together. And so I think what you're doing is really building a sense of community and allowing us to enjoy the outdoors. And so thank you so much, Chris, and thank you to your team, John, and everyone on board here. Thank you for what you guys are doing, because you really are improving the quality of life here in Encinitas. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate those words.
Councilmember Krantz.
Thank you, and I appreciate the presentation as well. I think Deputy Mayor Mosca summed up pretty effectively, all the great work that you guys have been doing. So I will second that. I also wanted to ask a couple of questions. One is related to a pest that my friend Bruce Hall brought up, which is this palm weevil. And I know that I asked Assistant City Manager Campbell about whether the Urban Forest Advisory Committee had any discussions about it, and I heard that you did a couple of years ago or more. And I'm wondering if you have seen any increase in the damage being done by that weevil.
Yep, that's a great question. Yeah, we did have a discussion with UFAC maybe about a year and a half ago or so, and since then we've also released a public document that details the palm weevil, so people can go and take a look for it and see what kind of damage it's causing, what it is, etc. We have not found it because we're routinely inspecting our trees to see if it's within a city tree. We have not seen it within a city maintained date palm. However, that being said, we are beginning to see an uptick in private property trees that are becoming infested with it. And so when we have done that, we've actually just last week, we identified one. So we're going to be reaching out to that homeowner to notify them that they do have this pest, how detrimental it is to that species, and recommend that tree be removed because it does present a significant risk to the city's remaining date palms.
Yeah, because while we may not have a big infestation now, all we need is for private trees to have it happen there, and then it'll spread fairly quickly from what I understand. So I appreciate your diligence in that. And I also wonder, if recommendations were to come from the city manager for perhaps for some outreach, whether we can use the inventory system to if there's any way to identify what private property owners we might need to send information to, because if we are passively providing information, that it may be time to step it up and do something a little different along those lines. So again, I appreciate your attention to that. The other issue is that when we created the Urban Forest Advisory Committee, and it was intended to focus on the upkeep of the urban forest throughout the city, and I'm hearing that it's become a little bit more focused on street trees and not so much on park trees. And so it's my hope that we can perhaps revisit that and make sure that those folks that have dedicated the time, volunteer time to engage in conversations about our urban forest will not be looking at just one part of the urban forest. So I hope that that can also be revisited. So in the end, very proud of the work that our staff does, and proud of the urban forest in our community, and we'll continue to focus on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up with the Weevil question, because I feel like I see that even in the Caltrans right of way, like it's really all over the county where they're turning gray and their head kind of falls off. And so is it really realistic to stop that?
No, it can't be stopped. We're doing preventative measures on the tree at Moonlight Beach, because that is susceptible to it, right? So there's annual treatments that we're doing, but feasibly to do it on a large scale, this is not feasible. And the other piece of it is it's attacking Canary Island date palms. Canary Island date palms are on the county's invasive species list as well. And oftentimes we have these out in the native areas, natural areas, et cetera, and they're attacking it, and ultimately they're being removed from those areas as well. So there's a delicate balance, in my opinion, a little bit. We want to protect the ones, but on the other hand, it's actually removing some of the ones from the native system, but it will have implications on a large scale for that species within the community.
And doesn't it also have budgetary implications? Because if we see a wholesale destruction of trees, we'll have to remove them, and they can only be destroyed by removal and hauling to the dump. And it's not an easy process to remove the trees, because they just basically become a Roman candle that is sitting there waiting to be ignited, and we have to remove them. So
that is correct.
The more we can do to minimize the destruction, I think the better we'll be.
Yep. And that's finding them and identifying it as soon as the city, as one hits the city, and we just get that tree out there.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor. Trees are a really important subject here in Encinitas, so I appreciate taking the time to do this presentation and to have the dialogue. The UFAC is, well, Chris especially, is focused on the public works side of things as far as the streetscapes. And I know that the other component of our trees are the parks, and that's our Parks Department that oversees those trees. But Chris, on UFAC, we don't necessarily engage with the Parks Department on UFAC, but there's coordination between you and the Parks Department on management strategies and planting. And the numbers that you're presenting, they're both parks trees and public works trees. May I get clarification?
Yep, they are.
I see that our head of parks, Travis Carlin, is on. Thank you, Travis. So the coordination between UFAC and parks, that happens at the UFAC or informally? How does that?
Thank you, Councilmember Lyons. That does happen regularly, that we communicate with Chris Kalstrand and his group. One of the things that we are always kept up to date with is if there is any agenda item on UFAC that is related to parks and recreation. But we are committed moving forward that we're going to have a city liaison, or I'm sorry, Parks and Recreation liaison attend that meeting on a regular basis.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to just mention that trees are also very important to our climate action plan as far as our carbon sequestration. And I know that all the trees that you ultimately do increase our numbers will contribute to carbon sequestration numbers in the climate action plan. Having said that, I'm interested in what it sounds like you may be too, and that is that the palm trees don't provide as much advantage to us. Not only they don't provide shade, but they also don't provide the level of carbon sequestration as some of the larger trees. So as far as the value of trees to our community and to our canopy, palm trees have a limited value, whereas the others, many of the others have a better value. So I wanted to ask you a question. When you presented about replacing invasives, when they die or they need to be removed for one reason or another, are you getting some pushback? Is it hard to really kind of encourage the positive dialogue to going with plants that aren't invasive? Is there any pushback you're getting there from the community or anyone?
Very little when it comes to removal of, say, a Mexican fan palm or even a Canary Island date palm. We don't have a ton of them that are coming out. SDG&E are a lot of more about power lines. They'd love us to get rid of all of them quickly. But there's never very much pushback. The community is very understanding and recognizes that we're putting the time and effort and we're trying to make better choices moving forward for the community. So if we have those conversation about the ecological benefits, yeah, palms are great. They're California. I mean, they're aesthetically, we see them in the landscape. That's what you think. I'm from Chicago. I think California palm trees, but they're not from here. And they're not giving the benefits back to the community. So it's really talking about, we can plant oaks, we can plant other species that are going to give us so much more in terms of year-round benefits, carbon sequestration, air cleaning, shade, cooling. I mean, as every council member said, and everybody knows, there's so many benefits to these trees. And palms, they're just, aside from aesthetics and a little bit of habitat, they're not giving the same number as, say, a broadleaf
Yes.
tree. So people are very understanding of that as you show them the data.
I'm glad to hear that. Even though 218 trees sounds like a lot, and it is, and I'm not critical. I would love to see that number much bigger. And the fact that we have opportunities that you've identified for planting in areas. And I know there are some resources out there where they're interested in helping us get some trees planted. So I want to ask you, what do you think is our biggest barrier to from where we are now and doing a good job of planting trees to even doing a better job of planting trees in those places where there's opportunities?
Yeah, really the biggest barrier is that these sites that we've identified within the public right of way are within people's front yards. It's opportunity, but it's turf grass. People love grass. They love their front yard. And so it's getting out and talking to them to identify these locations, and which we're doing with these door hangers and getting calls back. And more often than not, most people want a tree, and it's just time to get all the door hangers out there, get the species, get communications. It's just boots on the ground sort of thing to make it happen. And very few people don't want a tree. But it's time and in getting the knowledge out there to everybody that we're going to plant it, we're going to take care of it, and we're going to help keep it there. You're going to get the benefits from it as well as the remainder of the community. So it's really getting out there to all these residents and getting the information and doing individual door hangers, et cetera. That's my greatest barrier. And then once we've planted all these spots, private property is really where we need to focus. That's where tree canopy growth is going to come from. We can do our part as a city, but everybody needs to be informed about the benefits to ensure that we're protecting large trees on private property, that we're getting long-lived trees people are planting if there's programs, et cetera. So that's going to be our next hurdle once we finally get all of our trees planted, is to protect those that exist both publicly and privately.
Okay, I just want to mention two things that I want to support you with, and that is your comment on replacing trees based on canopy cover, not by individual single trees, one-to-one. I think it's a really valid comment to replace based on canopy cover. And also, I really do want to encourage you to continue to be involved in our native plant policy development. I know you have been, and we have another meeting coming up, but your involvement in that policy development here at the city for our future native plant policy will be very valuable. So thanks for your involvement, and look forward to seeing you participating in that as well in the future. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for showing up at Arbor Day. I got to put the plug out there again.
Yes, Councilmember Hinsey.
Yeah, hopefully a quick question. Obviously, we all really enjoy this presentation, so thanks for being here, Chris. My question is regarding SDG&E, because they've got a new government affairs person, and every time that happens, they tell us about all the programs that they have to help supplement our tree inventory and actually plant trees. And I'm just curious to know the extent to which we're working with them and they're able to actually implement these programs in the city, and are we taking advantage of what they offer for free?
Yeah, so Arbor Day, actually last year, the tree giveaway that we did, those trees directly came from SDG&E. So they have an extremely large program that they're running right now that's actually available to residents to be able to reach out to them. I think it's to purchase a tree and get it in the ground, and they'll reimburse you for up to a certain point. So there's that aspect that they're doing. And then we are working with them to get more trees. I'm all in support of getting free trees for us to plant, and then we just maintain them. So yeah, there's active communication lines going on with them. They gave us all the trees for this year's Arbor Day event as well. And so we are very active with them and trying to keep communication lines open as much as possible so that we can all benefit from the new services that they're providing.
Great, thank you. Good to hear.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make one final comment as a plug for us to promote planting of fruit trees, which provide not only the shade, but they also provide food. And, you know, if we're talking to people about putting trees in their front yard that they're using as their yard, you know, if they plant an avocado tree, which avocados are like $4 each these days, or anything, banana, orange, tangerine, apple, peach, anything, you know, I think that's really great. And we changed our city policies several years ago to not have fruit trees be unpermitted, because basically that was like not a permitted use or a permitted tree. So I was really thrilled to see the bananas that are at Swami's. So you or somebody must have planted a banana there, and I think it looks so great and perfect next to that tiki head. Was that your decision or? No, you'd have to reach. That's Parks. Yeah. That was very cool. Yeah, I love. Yeah, and oftentimes, sorry to interrupt, is the fruit trees are great in parks. That's really, you know, where we're able to best get them. So yeah, working with them to get fruit trees is a fantastic idea. Yeah, good. Well, and also as you're pursuing the front yard situation with all the private property owners. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea, and we can add those onto the list as we're presenting it to them. I think more people might actually want a tree if they're getting an extra, you know, like an orange off it or a lemon. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're fantastic. Okay, good. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and we'll move on to the next item.
Excuse me, Mayor, before we move in, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure, are there any speakers on this item regarding the urban forest? If there are, please raise your hand. We do have one speaker on this item. Jay Kessler.
Let's go ahead.
You can start when ready. You have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I would like to speak about the environmental nightmare housing project on Melba Road that is slated to take down a grove of mature Torrey pines, 173 trees, 30 smaller trees and native shrubs, along with demoing 3 beautiful historical homes built in 1938 or earlier on 6.6 acres for 31 homes, all based on the ill-fated density bonus law, AB 2345. We just received the notice of preparation from the city and the developer. This has only brought anxiety throughout the neighborhood. This anxiety is being felt amongst many longtime tax-paying residents who simply want to age in place. Due to this environmental nightmare housing project, now they are not being allowed to do this in Encinitas. Encinitas should not be treating the elders of this community like this. These seniors have raised their families and have only contributed positive things to the quality of life in Encinitas. I want to again point out that they simply look out the window and can't feel at peace because the tree will soon be removed. Brian recently met with the neighbors who will be directly impacted by this environmental nightmare housing project to discuss the boundary trees, and only upset them to the point of seeking medical care shortly after the visit. I want to remind you how Scripps dealt with building in the community, multiple meetings with the public and planning commission, taking constructive criticism and making changes based on the community's input. This should be the gold standard for building in the community. Nothing like this has taken place for this Melba project. With the 3 beautiful historical homes, the beautiful Encinitas redwood tree lines, please support the community in designating it historically, as it represents how Encinitas looked during the 30s. And this is not currently present at any other location in Encinitas. Please support the community in historical preservation of this property for open space with soft green infrastructure funding for the and community funding. Thanks for listening.
Mayor, that concludes speakers on this item.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands up. So we will go ahead and move to the next item, which is the San Diego County Fair presentation, item 4D. So we'll call on Luis Valdivia.
And it is actually going to be Carlene Moore.
Okay, great. Hello, Carlene. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Let's up this. Make sure I get the right screen going on here. Oops. All right. I'm Carlene Moore, CEO of the 22nd District Agricultural Association and the Del Mar Fairgrounds, home to the San Diego County Fair, which is what I'm here to share with you today. So I'm very excited to be sharing that the San Diego County Fair is back and it's in full swing this year. Summer will officially kick off when we open the doors on Wednesday, June 8th. And as you can see here, we're dark on Mondays and Tuesdays throughout the month of June, but we really want to invite all of you and everyone living and working in Encinitas to join us in Del Mar, June 8th through July 4th, where heroes will reunite. It's 21 days of affordable family fun and experiences that you just can't get anywhere else. And you know, for example here, a double-decker green apple cheesecake funnel cake. Anybody interested in something delicious and yummy like that? We also have a breaded chicken breast dunked in cherry Kool-Aid chicken sandwich this year. Because as we know, a big part of the fair experience are the unique foods that are offered each year, and this year continues that tradition. And speaking of those fair foods, did I mention that the fair is a calorie-free zone? So, I mean, if you think about it, anyone will definitely get their steps in as they stroll through the 4-H and FFA livestock exhibits, the ever popular garden show, designs in wood, art, photography, youth projects, crafts, shopping areas, and more. It's a full display of creativity of our community. And speaking of our community, and with a nod to our comic book heroes, we're honoring more than 30 local heroes throughout San Diego County. So be sure to stop by and take a stroll through the ever popular theme exhibit where their heroic stories will be on display. And you can also join us in the paddock each night at 7:45 for a celebration, followed by our Party in the Paddock concert series. Again, we've got 21 days and nights of live concerts and entertainment, including tributes to artists that are no longer touring, hypnotists, human circuses, trapeze artists, community dancers, and more. And of course, 4th of July fireworks. And all of that is free with fair admission. And the fair experience wouldn't be complete without carnival rides and games, spirits, wine, and beer festivals, and our ever popular grandstand concert series featuring a variety of genres and performers from pop to country and comedy to rock and roll. New this year, all of our tickets are sold online and in advance only, and that's admission tickets, concerts, the beverage festivals, and even parking this year. We have a self-imposed capacity limit, and we're expecting sellout crowds daily, including the 4th of July. And also new this year, and as you can see on this grid on your screen, our weekday admission is discounted to provide all of our guests with hopefully a better experience when it comes to traffic, to parking, and even the lines. So you can visit sdfair.com to buy tickets today, as well as for our program highlights. And to make it even more affordable for our community, you can take flight with our super savings discounts. So you can visit neighborhood Albertsons or Vaughn's to receive discount code for $3 off admissions. You can grab a savings pack or a couple of them next time you visit Costco. Every Friday is Kids Day, where kids 12 and under are free. All other days, kids 5 and under are free as well. And if we have a couple of opportunities, there are additional savings if purchased before June 7th, and that is to buy our Fun Pass for Carnival rides and games. And if purchased before June 7th, can receive 25% more Carnival tickets than if purchased at the fair. As well as on Wednesdays and Thursdays, we're offering our pay one price wristbands, which are a really great way to experience the Carnival. But if purchased before June 7th, you can save $4 on that. And with an online discount code that you can get at your neighborhood 7-Elevens, you can save an additional $5, all total combining those to get $9 off of that already discounted pay one price wristband. And then we also have other opportunities for our community to save with either how to get to the fair as well as while visiting the fair, such as purchasing the Passport to Savings book while here at the fair. It's just $5 and literally can save thousands of dollars on food, rides, and merchandise. Or take advantage of combining some of our discount programs, such as the midweek discounted rate, along with the pay one price Carnival wristbands on the Thursday, and grab our $3 taster size portions to graze your way through the ultimate fair experience. So again, you can visit sdfair.com for more details, more savings, and to sign up for our newsletter. And again, I just want to thank you, council members, for all of your time today, as well as what you're doing in service to our community. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I always appreciate hearing the fair update every year too. So I'm glad that every year you guys come, and I appreciate that. It's great that you're back fully. I read about it in the newspaper. It seems like there's some ongoing other controversies, but for the public, it will still be open. So that's great. Councilmember Kranz.
Yes, I appreciate the presentation. Always fun to hear about the fair and recall my days as a carny, working for Crutchfield Concessions and the fish and chip stand and such. Are there going to be the displays of crafts and woodworking and things as usual?
Yes, there will be. It's very much the usual, the honoring the traditions with, of course, a little bit of sprinkling of, some innovations in there as well.
Always very impressive, the work that people in the community do as hobbies, and so that's always a fun trip through the halls there.
I can't believe you were a carny.
Yeah, making fish and chips and roast beef sandwiches, and I threw some kegs around in the beer garden there with Montezuma's Revenge band playing every night until midnight. It was quite a summer job.
Yeah, it's only, the whole fair is only like 3 weeks or 4 weeks, right? So yeah, I remember my mom did not want me to do that during the summer because it seemed like there were too many bad influences at the fair. So it was, we'd always go with the family. But that's cool that you did that. So anyway, Deputy Mayor Mosca.
Not that Tony would be one of those bad influences, but I do think after 6 years, I continue to learn more about Tony and understand more about where he's coming from. So thank you for more revealing yourself there, Tony. Carlene, thank you so much. I did want to comment on your focus on ensuring that all families in our county can enjoy, and even into Orange County, can enjoy the fair. I think that's notable. And worthwhile to just kind of talk about your focus on that. And thank you. So just if you can bring that back, thank you so much for creating discounts for family members and even progressive rate structures so that people can enjoy the fair, the whole family can enjoy it throughout the month. So thank you so much. Mayor Blakespear asked this, I think maybe 2 or 3 times in the past. And so I'm going to raise it, and I don't know if she's going to raise it, but it would also be good to learn about how we're encouraging people to potentially, especially if they're in Del Mar or Solana Beach or Encinitas, to walk or cycle to the fair as opposed to taking their car, because it's always so backed up, and it'd probably be a really good thing for the environment and for people's sanity if they had opportunities to bike to the fair as well. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, and thank you for this opportunity. And Councilmember Kranz, you are always welcome to come back and work at the fair. everyone is. And on that note, we are still hiring for the fair. It's a great summer job opportunity for high schoolers, college students and on up. But with that, Councilmember Mosca, we are involved in, have been involved in the program in terms of, the bike share program for the coastal cities. It's something we will continue to be, and do look forward to being able to come up with that plan in the future so that our community can safely ride to and get to the fair in the future. So it's definitely it is on our radar. And thank you as well. I mean, we consider, the fair and other activities that we have to be here. And a big part of what we do in the community is to be affordable and accessible to everyone. And so really hope people take advantage of these discount opportunities that we've got this year.
You can ride your bicycle to the fair.
You can.
Right, and you have you have a place to
walk. We do have bike parking, but we want to see in the future, we want to see that program expand further out. And in terms of the opportunities for it and the designated bike paths in order to get here.
Yeah, that's very good. I mean, we've ridden our bike to the fair, and it would be nice if there was a coordination, kind of like a race, like where you have a special part of the road that's designated for that, and then there were signs and that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, thanks for raising that question, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Carlene, for coming. And hopefully everyone has a great time at the fair, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Okay. Did we have any public comment? Sorry, public comment on the fair.
Yes. Do we have any public comment on the San Diego County Fair? We have one person, and again, this is not oral communications. This is just regarding the San Diego County Fair. Rachel? We have one speaker.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you see me?
No.
Oh, I guess it doesn't work. Hi. Hi, I'm Rachel. I just had I just wanted to say I appreciate your comments from the fair representative. That's a lot of fun to hear about. It must be an Encinitas thing, Tony, because I also worked at Crutchfield. I worked at the gingerbread shop, and almost everyone I knew from Encinitas worked at the fair as teenagers. So too bad no one else got the opportunity. It's a lot of fun.
I think half of Encinitas probably worked for Crutchfield concessions at one time.
Yeah, we sure did. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving, City Clerk, I'd like to ask you, the way that I run the meeting at Sandag is that I say, if you'd like to speak on this item, put your hand up during the staff presentation. Okay. And then I call on the public speakers, and then I call on the elected members. What do you think that would help things?
Yeah, that's fine. And moving to, we can outline during oral communications will be easy, but moving to the consent calendar will be, we'll probably hear all speakers.
Okay.
Before we take action.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well then let's move to oral communications. So if you would like to comment during oral communications, please put your hand up and the city clerk will call on you.
Okay, we do have several. So just a reminder, you do have 3 minutes. I'm going to call you 3 at a time. You will be upgraded to panelist. So just make sure that you're ready when your name is called. Make sure that you're ready to unmute your microphone and to enable your video if desired. The first 3 speakers are Jeff Vaccaro, Diane Grace, and then JR. And a reminder, this is for oral communications for items that are not listed on the agenda.
Can you guys hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, perfect. My name is Jeff Vaccaro. I'm honored to call myself a native Encinitan. My grandfather moved to Liebenhain in '72, and I recently took a position on the Liebenhain Town Council Board. I'm here to speak to you tonight in regards to a proposed crosswalks on Rancho Santa Fe Road, specifically the one on Morning Sun Drive. I am a Morning Sun Ranch resident and was made aware of the proposal through my position on the OTC board. For a little history, Deputy Mayor Mosca and other Liebenheim residents formed the Rancho Santa Fe Task Force to address the traffic plague corridor. For the final phase of the improvements, they suggested adding crosswalks, specifically a raised crosswalk between Morning Sun and Olive Crest. The primary reason for this crosswalk was to calm traffic at the peak of the hill. Fast forward to today, we learned that staff immediately is going to construct 3 crosswalks in the corridor, one at Del Norte, one at Lone Jack, and one on the north side of Morning Sun. These crosswalks were not in the plan by the task force, nor were the new brightly lighted stop signs at Lone Jack and Del Norte. The town council responded to move the Morning Sun crosswalk to the controlled intersection at Olive Crest. The desire to paint a crosswalk at the uncontrolled intersection along the speed-plagued Rancho Santa Fe Road is just plainly baffling. It is being placed along a stretch that there are no ways for vehicles or pedestrians to enter the street from the east. Liebenheim residents simply cross at Olive Crest if they're going to Digueño, or they continue down the trail if they're going to OPE. Our dog parents, they simply cross the light at La Posta. There is no use for a crosswalk here at Morning Sun. The crosswalk will also enter our beautiful RSF trail, and we would hate to see what ADA considerations that we would disturb the trail. Staff has shared no motivation on this change, nor do they appear to be open to any change, and that's why I'm here. We can only assume that this change was to improve the pedestrian access to the schools. I am a parent at OPE. Over the past few years, the Digueño traffic has increased here in Morning Sun Ranch dramatically. The community of Morning Sun was here in the 80s and doesn't support the heavy drop-off traffic that we endure. The fire access road was never intended to be a drop-off point for Digueño. A brightly painted crosswalk here on Rancho Santa Fe Road is like a big signal that there is a new drop-off here in Morning Sun Ranch. I had a chance to run an errand today at 3:13 p.m. It literally took me 5 minutes to go from my house on Morning Sun Drive to the stop sign on Rancho Santa Fe Road. It is walkable within like 3 minutes. I'm here tonight to ask council to instruct staff to revisit the new crosswalks and work together with the community. Our community in the Liebenheim, as you know, is strong, and we just ask staff to be a good community member and work with us. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker, Diane Grace.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Diane Grace. I come here as a very concerned mother and grandmother. Several months ago, a speaker shared information about marijuana anonymous groups available around the county. The most robust group is here in Encinitas at Seacoast Church, and many young people have found it a lifesaver. I would like to share another resource called Marijuana Victims Alliance. As their website states, Marijuana Victims Alliance is dedicated to supporting victims harmed by the marijuana industry and the normalization and promotion of the marijuana culture. Recently, I read their manifesto, which is written to the marijuana industry by parents and families of children who have either died or whose brains and lives have been ruined because of their marijuana use. I wanted to take a few quotes from it to share with you tonight. Quote, "You, the marijuana industry, said your miracle drug would treat and cure a laundry list of illnesses. Yet we now know you took your natural herb and modified it into strains of highly potent chemicals, increased its power of addiction, which creates disorder, depression, and anxiety. You, the marijuana industry, promised drug cartels and the black market would be put out of business by your competition. Yet your drug increased the black market for more drugs and certainly did not go away. You, the marijuana industry, said buckets of taxes would be collected to be directed towards education budgets, yet now you lobby for lower taxes, reducing any potential funding for education. Thank you for the opportunity to share these quotes." Remembering that the marijuana business plan includes attracting 1, new and young customers so they can become lifetime users, and 2, infrequent marijuana users to increase their use to daily use. Thank you.
Next speaker is JR. And IT, I believe JR sent in a PowerPoint.
Okay. My mom sent.
There you go.
Dear City Council members, my name is Jack. I am 10 years old. I go to school in Encinitas. I am here to ask you to make part of Saxony Road safer for me and my friends so I can ride my bike to school. Between La Costa and Lucadia, Saxony Road has a lot of cars going very fast, and it is unsafe to ride our bikes. Next slide. To get to school, we have to use Saxony Road between Quail Gardens Drive and Normandy Road. You can see that right here on this part of the road, there is no bike lane or sidewalk, and the cars drive through there very, very fast. Plus, it is curvy, and with cars going fast, they can't see bikers to stop fast enough. So my mom doesn't let me bike to school, and it would be easier if she didn't have to drive me because she has to work. Next slide. The intersection we need to turn onto Saxony is also dangerous. The cars on Saxony don't have to stop and they speed by there very fast, making it hard to bike across. Next slide. Plus, there are trees and bushes that get all tall, make it hard to see cars coming from the left to cross safely. Here's a picture of what it looks like to look for cars coming. Can you spot the car coming? You can see how hard it is to spot the car. Next slide. How about now? Can you see the car hiding behind the tree? This is another reason my mom won't let me bike there, because it's too dangerous, even to cross the road. Next slide. If you turn right on Saxony, becomes a freeway. Cars go 60 miles per hour there. I have some ideas that would fix this. On part of Saxony, we could use more speed limit signs, and it would really be nice to put in a bike lane where there's plenty of room, and my friends could go bike to La Costa and connect with the bike lane there and go to the beach. Next slide. At the intersection of Quail Gardens and Saxony, please install stop signs so that cars on Saxony slow down and stop. That way bikers have a chance to safely cross the street. Warning signs and even a crossing light would be awesome. Next slide. And last, but definitely not least, it is possible to make the section between Quail Gardens and Normandy safe by putting in speed bumps to slow the cars and allow bikers to use full lane so I don't get hit by a car. I can think of the people that live in the houses on this section of the street would like it too because they always put signs out on their own driveways telling cars to slow down. These are just some ideas to make Saxony safer for not just me, but everyone. Can you please take action and make some of these changes before the next school year so that my mom will let me ride the bike to school? I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Next speaker is Rick Boyer.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Blake Spear and council members, my name is Rick Boyer. Along with Susan Ryan Rappaport, I am here to present some information to the council that we don't believe the council has properly considered regarding the Encinitas Boulevard Apartments. Ms. Ryan was never provided notice about this project and just learned about it recently, believe it or not. She owns the property at 2232 Encinitas Boulevard, which is, if you aren't aware of it, borders on McCain Lane and actually uses McCain Lane for the business that is operating there on that property, which is the Academy at Bright Horizons Preschool. Ms. Rappaport owns an easement on McCain Lane for ingress and egress, full road easement, and is entitled to free use of that easement. If the license for that preschool depends upon the free use of McCain Lane for the drop-off and pickup of students, they enter onto the from Encinitas Boulevard onto the east side of the school, enter into a protected area where they could drop off kids or pick up kids, and then they exit onto McCain Lane and turn left and back onto Encinitas Boulevard. The Sandag traffic survey indicates that as many as 1,600 vehicle trips per day will be using McCain Lane. Adding to the current approximately 150 vehicle trips for parents and another 20 to 25 for the teachers and staff of the school, McCain Lane is just going to be a tremendous traffic nightmare. The noise, the pollution, the traffic is going to make that business untenable. The result is undoubtedly that parents will not want to deal with that or not want to subject their children to that sort of experience, and they will remove their children from that school. The school will end up closing down. I know that this project has been before the council for probably 2 years as I'm getting up to speed quickly on this, but it looks like it's been very controversial for quite a while. And I will tell you that neither I or Ms. Ryan are affiliated with any other group that's been opposing this project. But as I said, she just recently learned about it. For some reason, she never received notice about it from the developer. So from everything that I've seen so far, it does not appear that this particular issue has been raised by any of the opposing parties or groups to the project. And it seems to be a fairly unique problem that will affect Ms. Ryan and the preschool that's located there on her property. I want to allow
sorry
Ms.
to interrupt you. That is your 3 minutes.
That is my 3 minutes. Well, I'm sorry. I was hoping to have Ms. Ryan introduce herself and raise a few issues herself. Is there time for her to have 1 more minute to do that?
Is she registered to speak as well?
Yes, she's on. She should be on the Zoom call.
Okay. Is she? Let's see. I have 2 numbers, 33 ending in 335 and 277. Otherwise, there's no one with that name who has their hand up. Yeah, I don't see anyone with that name on the call.
Susan Ryan Rappaport, perhaps?
Nope.
Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. Well, I will just say thank you very much, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm sure we'll be addressing the council again about this, but since we are just new to the issue, we wanted to raise this issue directly with the council. Thank you.
Next speaker is Gia Gonzalez Shock.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Gia Shockey, and I'm speaking on behalf of San Diego Youth Drug Alliance. I joined this evening because I am concerned about the availability of high-potency THC marijuana products selling at Encinitas marijuana dispensaries. The primary consumers of flavored tobacco and marijuana products are my peers. No surprise, age under 30 years old. My fear is that we will begin to see these high doses being sold in Encinitas storefronts, such as the future Enimities. High-potency THC products are hidden inside candies, drinks, and vape products, which are a major subject of marketing efforts. Alarming increases in ER admissions related to THC use are challenging the healthcare system and exacerbating the current burnout rate of nurses and healthcare workers. THC use is linked to respiratory depression, chronic cardiac problems, and mental instability. Last week, the CDC issued this statement, quote, "When you experience significant impairment or distress or suicidal ideation and attempts, call emergency services immediately. Patients with problems such as anxiety, depression, attention deficits, and learning difficulties related to problematic use of THC should be encouraged to seek evidence-based behavioral treatment and recovery services." It would be in the best interest of Encinitas City Council to protect the well-being of our young adult and youth populations by updating the current municipal code by mirroring the city's ban on flavored tobacco products. Banning high THC flavored marijuana products from the retail marketplace will help ban and create a healthier lifestyle for the Encinitas community and lessen the burden on the already fatigued healthcare teams across the city. Thank you and have a great evening.
Next speaker is Natalie Satoon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I have IT to have, there should be two images. If IT could show the images.
Yes, they're showing them.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Natalie Satoon, Cardiff. First, voter access. These last few years, we have witnessed the frightening erosion of voter access in this country, basically the end of the Voting Rights Act. Access by the public is the cornerstone of democracy and is critical to the proper function of government. This council's decision to conduct city meetings via Zoom is a disenfranchising force and stifles public participation. I feel that as an anathema to support accessible voting legislation while simultaneously limiting, which I know this council does, the experience of participating in local government. I know that limiting public participation would streamline the operation of government, but that is not what you all signed up for when you sought public office. Image 2, please. Next, an Encinitas City Council appointed committee member Molly Woods-Drake must be traveling a lot. She behaves like she has jet lag because that's what it would take to verbally assault someone who might be our next state senator. On or about May 24th, Ms. Woods-Drake accused Joe Kerr, a Democrat Senate candidate endorsed by Encinitas firefighters, of being racist and sexist. These assaults are incendiary and uncalled for in this forum. Moreover, they are untrue and unsupported. Ms. Woods-Drake's resort to unfounded personal attacks and the use of cancel culture to block out any member of the public's difference of opinion is ugly. The public deserves to be encouraged to participate in a forum where issues are paramount and voices can be heard. People who make the effort to think on a matter and show up to voice their opinion should not have to be confronted by a government appointee whose first introduction is to launch into character assassination attempts. A pattern is emerging. Ms. Drake regularly calls people out as a white supremacist, a stalker, a racist, and a sexist. I too have been the recipient of such unfounded personal assaults. To me, Ms. Woods-Drake's despicable name calling seemed like a thinly veiled effort at censorship. However, she simply does not want anyone with a different mindset involved in government decision-making. I know the members of this city council are aware of her comments on social media. Catherine, your mayor, Catherine Blakespear page, and elsewhere. Silence is acquiescence. Tony, have you forgotten this beautiful city while you campaign for your political life? Or do you condone her behavior as your proxy, Catherine? This is not tit for tat, and I am no shrinking violet. It is my right to participate in public forum meetings without intimidation or threat from your appointee. She interjects randomly, more often leading with personal attacks using inflammatory language. The line has been needlessly overstepped. The time has come for you to remove all impediments that chill public participation. I implore you to get your house in order. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mark Wilcox. Mark Wilcox is the next speaker.
Mark, I'm going to need you to accept when I promote you to panelist.
Oh, there you go. Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, a little technology handicap there. Good evening, City Council. I am Mark Wilcox, a father and grandfather, and I am passionate about protecting young people from drug use that short circuits their journey to adulthood faster than any other problem. I have argued against marijuana sales and cultivation in Encinitas because neighborhoods don't improve with marijuana businesses in them, just like neighborhoods do not improve with more liquor stores or head shops or smoke shops. Since this City Council cares about disadvantaged citizens, I hope we understand the critical impact that smoking and vaping have for ethnic minorities and economically needy people, including shortened lifespan and chronic health problems. For example, the marijuana industry is dominated by big corporations, including the tobacco company Altria, who spend millions to keep menthol cigarettes on the market because African-American smokers historically purchase menthol-flavored products and are aggressively targeted. Troubling to parents is that the youth marketplace is besieged by marijuana and nicotine companies with their marketing and promotions. It is no surprise then that vaping continues at epidemic levels, with many adolescents mistakenly using nicotine and marijuana vapes and other products to relieve stress. This is especially disconcerting given the fact that nicotine and marijuana can increase stress as well as worsen symptoms of anxiety and depression. 2 national virtual conferences are happening this week in response to this situation. Clear the Vapor 2020 is sponsored by Parents Against Vaping, and Youth in Crisis, the connection between vaping, nicotine, and mental health, sponsored by the CDC Division of Adolescent and School Health, the University of California, San Francisco Center for Tobacco Control Research and Education. The conference's main recommendation is local and state policies to ban flavored marijuana and nicotine products. Make no mistake, it's the flavors that are the primary driver for vaping. Thank you.
Next speaker is Amy McCord.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Amy McCord, 28-year resident of Olivenhain. I'm a member of the Rancho Santa Fe Road Traffic Task Force convened by Joe Mosca to address safety and traffic problems on the main road that serves Olivenhain. The Traffic Task Force surveyed the community to learn about residents' concerns and preferences. Safety and traffic flow were primary concerns, with the caveat that potential solutions would not interfere with the community's rural character and dark skies policy. Pedestrian accidents and deaths led the task force to prioritize crosswalks at several key intersections. We've been patiently waiting for the city's budget to cover the implementation of 2 or 3 crosswalks and some road signage to improve safety. About 3 weeks ago, flashing stop signs were installed at Lone Jack Road and El Camino del Norte. This decision was made without input from the community, without contacting the Traffic Task Force, and using funds that should have been budgeted for other improvements. I asked Joe Mosca and Traffic Commissioner Bob Prendergast for background on this decision. Joe said he knew nothing about it, and just an hour ago, Bob referred me to Traffic Engineer Abe Bandigan. And I just checked my email and heard from Abe that he was behind this decision. So it leaves me wondering how these decisions are being made, ignoring the work that a task force did, and how the city is working through these things without including the traffic commissioner. So either way, I'm concerned about how it reflects on our traffic commissioner, who's being considered tonight to fill the critically important position of planning commissioner. I believe Dan Vaughn is best qualified for the job. Thank you.
And our last speaker under oral communications is Rachel.
I want to be on video. How do I do that? Oh, okay, okay. Hi. Again. My name is Rachel, and I am one of the victims of Blake Spears' failure to uphold her oath of office. Can you hear me? Everyone's frozen.
Yes, we can.
My husband is on active duty in the U.S. Army, so I'm not about to relinquish the very rights he serves to protect. And even though you and your supporters try to shame us into silence, here I am tonight to speak. Last week, we were hoodwinked by the city manager, and you, the council, went right along with it. She designated 2 city buildings as Cal-OSHA outbreak locations, with 3 cases within 3 days, or 14 days. Do you know when each of the locations qualified as outbreaks? You didn't ask, but I did. My first public records request, Antel said, City Hall and Kaye Mag reached the criteria as of May 16th. I was a little suspect. In a second request, City Hall had 5 cases by May 12th and Kaye Mag had 4 by May 14th. 5 requests later, and still, we don't know the dates that each location reached its threshold. But we do know council met for 5 hours on May 11th. Therefore, you were all exposed. And yet Blake Spear attended pro-abortion rallies, toured the Blake Spear campaign events, art events at the senior center, so many contacts, the mayor claims, that contact tracing would be impossible. Tony and Joy, you also attended campaign events as well. And then you all came together again last week to gather at the outbreak location. And these aren't the actions of a council hoping to, quote, nip it in the bud by transitioning to Zoom. We were also lied to about the OSHA requirements. I used some of the city manager's colorful vocabulary to pose questions to Cal OSHA. Number 1, does Cal OSHA have any rule, protocol, guideline, requirement, regulation, or restriction on the building that would limit the number or type of people allowed within said building once an outbreak is identified? The answer, the current standard does not have any building restriction requirements during outbreaks. Number 2, if the city were to hold a meeting in the building, would the city be going against or violating any Cal OSHA requirements? The answer, no violation noted. I was told by a second OSHA manager, someone must have gotten confused. Confused? Are we on Zoom tonight because you 5, the city manager and the city attorney are confused? I don't believe it. We're being lied to. Information's being kept from us, and you voted based on fraudulent information provided to you. We know 4 of you are a lost cause, but Tony, you're fully aware of these communications. How can you serve as mayor when you can't demand the truth for the public?
And Mayor, that does conclude oral communications.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the communications tonight. Next, we have no report from closed session.
Madam Mayor, I was wondering, JR gave a nice presentation on Saxony, and I know that we had worked on some pedestrian improvements there before, but I was hoping that we could ask JR to give that same presentation to the traffic or the mobility commission and have them discuss the possibilities that he raised there with city staff.
Okay, that sounds great. Any other comments? Okay. Then we'll move to the next thing on our agenda, which is we had no closed session. City Clerk, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, we do. Item 10B, which is the extension of the safe parking lot, has been continued to June 15th. It was removed from the agenda, this agenda by staff, and will be rescheduled for the June 15th City Council meeting.
Okay, thank you. So then moving to the rest of consent, if you would like to comment on a consent item, please put your hand up now. And is there anything else to discuss about any items on consent being pulled, City Clerk?
If any council members wish to pull an item from consent?
Okay, I'd entertain, well, do we have 4 people with their hands up on an item, so let's take the.
Yeah, what was pulled?
We don't know. I don't know it. There's no way to know
see.
since we don't have registration. So our first speaker is Tim Bratton. Tim Bratton will be followed by Kathleen Lees.
Mute.
We can see you and hear you, Tim. Go ahead.
Good. I'm going to do a screen share too. Okay. Good evening, Mayor Blakespear and City Council. I'd like to talk about the new crossings, the at-grade crossings. And first, I think Rail Pros is an excellent choice. They understand about quiet zones, which I think is very important. And I do want to talk about the fact that I didn't see anything in the RFP about how to make the crossings compatible with a quiet zone. And I did want to go over the data on the train horn survey that was done, the train horn demonstration. And it's curious that of the 517 answers, about 40% of the people who were surveyed in the the train horn demo didn't have any answer. And that's roughly compatible with the number of people who hadn't heard the demonstration. So if you say, okay, those people didn't hear it, so their answers probably aren't all that relevant, the highest number of people found it between unacceptable and highly unacceptable, which is consistent with my experience talking with people who are in the train horn blast zone. So I would like to see something in the design for the at-grade crossing to try to figure out how to make it compatible with a train horn quiet zone. And the good news is that there is an answer. And hopefully you can see my screen again. This is the presentation that was given by the San Clemente Director of Public Works in 2017 about their approach. And they had a very similar problem with their pedestrian crossings. I'm just going to skip through it quickly because there is an answer. They did not deal with the pedestrian crossing soon enough, and it caused them problems. I would like to see us deal with the pedestrian crossings now. I do think that the residents in North Leucadia deserve crossings, but I do think they'll want it to be quiet. And the answer is that there is a waiver that you can get. And apparently that was approved by the Federal Railroad Administration. And I'd like to see something like that built into this initial design from Rail Pros. And they know how to do it. I've talked to the people at Rail Pros. They're excellent people. And I think if we did this the right way, it'll make things a lot easier and we can get to the citywide train horn quiet zone and get those additional at-grade crossings. Thank you.
Next speaker is Kathleen Lees. Kathleen Lees will be followed by ET and then Rochelle Collier.
Unmute. Start video. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, now I know why people ask that question. My name is Kathleen Lees. I live in Leucadia. Good evening, Council, Mayor, and Ms. Antil. At-grade pedestrian crossings are an idea that was born many years ago at the Leucadia Encinitas Town Council board meetings. When we tried to contact the powers that be for information, we were always told the same thing. They don't like these kinds of crossings, they won't approve them, and if they do, they'll be too expensive. We could never get past the no men. We collected over 900 signatures on a petition and presented it to the City Council, requesting that they at least look into the possibility of having them built in our community. We collected another 200 signatures at Leucadia Art Walk the following August. It was a very popular idea. We participated in all the workshops for streetscape, always requesting the inclusion of at-grade pedestrian bike crossings. I believe it was partly why Tony Krantz, who was on the LETC board for a while, decided to run for city council, and I presume it's one of the reasons he stayed so long. I know he certainly worked very hard on it, and he's the guy who likes to finish his jobs. No thanks to the work Tony has done. Now thanks to the work Tony has done, when he called the latest meeting to do some testing at Leucadia Oaks Park, it was attended by SANDAG, North County Transit District, county, state, and federal railroad and agency representatives. Times have definitely changed. Those powers that be now know where Leucadia is and who Tony is. They answer their phone when he calls. I want to thank Tony for all his hard work and dedication to this cause. And I also want to thank all of you for taking a stand for the safety of our community. And if I have one more minute, I will add something that I just heard that I think I have a question about, and that's someone moving from one commission to the other. My reading of our commissioner's resource workbook says that midterm, you cannot take a commissioner from one commission to the other. You have to finish the commission you're on. You can't go moving from one commission to another. So if that's the one I have is 2018, so possibly it's not still current, but someone should check that if you're going to be moving someone onto the planning commission from another commission. Thank you. And thank you, Tony. And thank all of you for your attention to our issues.
Next speaker is ET, who will be followed by Rochelle Collier.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, Elena Thompson here, and I want to thank you all for your service. I know it's not always easy. I am here because I would really prefer to talk about the fair and bike lanes for JR, rail crossings, and even the Leucadia streetscape. But I'm actually here tonight regarding the mayor's legislative letter requesting all of your approval to support California becoming a transsexual sanctuary state with gender-affirming healthcare, sex changes, and hormone treatment for youth under the age of 18. This is with the new proposed legislation in California, SB 107. And I simply want to know the following, please. Number one, why is the city and this city council putting your noses in such controversial and ideologically conceived draft legislation here and now, ever for that matter? Number two, why is our city wasting precious staff resources, your time, and all of our time on an item that clearly has nothing to do with the city of Encinitas when there are far more important priorities. Number 3, this proposed legislation is still in very rough draft state and won't be voted on until late October, I've learned, at best. So why are we rushing to have you all support this legislation now? Why at all, I would ask? And lastly, number 4, why is this highly serious topic tucked away on the consent calendar for your automatic rubber stamping without any full discussion planned at all on such a polarizing proposed California legislation? Now, I fully understand the role and process for legislative letters, even though I do disagree with the 2022 Encinitas legislative priorities set by Tony Kranz and Joe Mosca, who are responsible for setting priorities this year with their team of 2, as they called it, ad hoc legislative committee, without citizen input or oversight. Making California, however, and Encinitas a trans sanctuary state and supporting gender-affirming healthcare, sex changes for minors, and hormone replacement therapy cannot possibly be a priority for Encinitas residents and or parents, and should not even be for our city or on your schedule tonight. Further, I've learned from the author of this bill that of the 482 cities in California, do you know that only 5 have written a letter in support, and the city of Encinitas would be the 6th? Why are we doing this? This item is out of place in our city, my friends, and another bad policy coming from the current Sacramento leadership. I urge you, please do not support this legislative letter. Thank you.
And our last speaker for consent calendar is Rochelle Collier.
Hi. I'm not going to ask if you can hear me. I'm hoping you can hear me. I see you, Joe. Smile if you can hear me. Thank you. Hi, my name is Rochelle Collier. I live on Hillcrest Drive in Leucadia. And good evening to Mayor Blake Spear and our entire city council. I'm, of course, here about the railroad at grade crossings. And as a quick historical reference, we in North Leucadia have been asking the city to look into the possibility of at-grade crossings for well over 15 years. The Leucadia Town Council saw the need in our community for access to shops, restaurants, the post office, and our beaches after hearing from our neighbors and members. We started a drive to make the city aware of this need, and as Kathleen said, we collected over 1,000 signatures, which we presented to a previous city council. The neighborhood on the east side of the tracks is large, and really, it's unbelievable that no one has factored in the size of this community and their inability to get across the tracks for normal errands and daily activities. Along the way on this journey for access and mobility, Tony Krantz is my neighbor, and we've all decided, yes, we need to have at-grade crossings. And he was very much a part of our pushing to get those crossings. We were delighted when he was elected to our city council, with our help, of course. He has never stopped trying to get us our access, and I can't imagine how frustrated he must be, because our entire community is frustrated. I'm telling you, every day when I walk, we're all talking about the stupid fence that they're putting up NCTD. It is beyond time to start the funding to move forward with a project which will allow us to get to our streetscape and the other side of our community. Our situation is unique because, again, the majority of our community lives east of the tracks. And now our situation has become dire because, as I mentioned, NCTD is putting up a fence to block our ability to cross and stop our mobility. I want you to know that I appreciate that after more than 15 years, the safety and mobility of our neighborhood is finally being considered. And I want you to know, after hearing what some people said tonight, I really appreciate everything you do, and thank you.
Mayor, that does conclude speakers for the consent calendar.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion on consent.
So moved, Mosca.
Well, so are those items pulled? Are we going to respond to those comments on items 8H and 8I?
I mean, no, unless you want to say something.
Yeah, well, usually when people comment on it, they expect it to be voted on separately. So I think 8H and 8I should be voted on separately, and we'll pull them myself if that's not how the protocol is working with our new Zoom sessions.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion on the balance except for those two, 8H.
My motion was actually the remainder, excluding, which ones did you say, Tony?
8H and 8I.
All right, so that's my motion, excludes 8H and 8I. Say that several times.
I'll second
I'll
that.
second.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Kranz,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca,
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Takes us to item 8H.
Okay, I would entertain, or Councilmember Kranz, yes?
Yeah, I would move that we approve 8H. I appreciate the concerns that were raised, but the reality is that this is a pretty straightforward bill that is not interfering with parental rights. It makes it possible for people to come to California from the states that have currently adopted kind of archaic, crazy rules that intervene in healthcare decisions that a family is engaged in, which I think is unfortunately a trend that we're seeing around the country, and to me, really concerning. But basically what this bill is going to do is it's going to prevent the issuance of I think it's subpoenas, but protect people from the laws that are in Alabama and several other states. So it doesn't interfere with any parental rights. It leaves people's privacy intact, and I think that it's entirely possible that a family fleeing this kind of attempt to intervene in healthcare decisions might end up in Encinitas. So I think it is valid for our community. So I move approval.
Well, thank you for your comments. I appreciate you saying that. Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, and I'm going to second that, and not to repeat what Councilmember Kranz just said, because I think he said it well. Clearly healthcare options are under siege and under attack in the United States, and these rights already exist here in the state of California. So what we're doing is preserving people's healthcare choices. And we're seeing this even with a woman's right to decide about what she wants to do with her body. Those rights and that decision really belongs with a woman and her family. And the same thing with these choices. And so I think that what this law is doing is preserving those healthcare options. I just also wanted to say about the legislative priorities. In years past, what we've done in terms of updating the legislative priorities is essentially, the staff would bring us some updates and we would have one meeting on that and we would update the priorities. And I'm making these comments because somebody said that, that there wasn't much public comment. This year, what we did was the city council formed an ad hoc committee and of myself and Councilmember Kranz. And what we've done is that we basically had several meetings with staff looking over those priorities. We actually sent out a survey to the city, the public, asking for their feedback, and sent them the priorities, and then sent a draft of those priorities asking people for feedback. We then basically drafted draft priorities and then brought it back to the city council for another hearing. And so actually this year, with the help of Pat Piot, who's online here, we actually had multiple opportunities for feedback on the priorities. So I would say that they represent the values and the viewpoint of Encinitas more than they have in the past, because we've had multiple opportunities for feedback. So I just wanted to say that, because I just want to push back against the notion that those priorities were put together and that there was no public input. there was public input, and actually even more than there has been in the past. So very happy to second this motion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to both of you for your comments. Let's go ahead and vote on this.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca,
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Takes us to item 8I.
And, okay.
Councilmember Krantz.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the comments that I heard tonight, and especially from my friends Rochelle and Kathleen Lees. Yes, we all spend a lot of time at city events gathering signatures for at-grade crossing considerations. They're referring to an agenda item that happened in 2009 where this community was trying to get the city to get on board with the city of San Clemente in a lawsuit that they had with the railroads over at-grade crossings. So it was, I think, a pretty important issue, and unfortunately the council at that time decided not to pursue it. But the reality is that NCTD was not encouraging it either. And I am really happy that NCTD is actually helping us to facilitate the efforts to conduct this safety study with rail pros and to pursue through the CPUC and the Federal Railroad Administration, the authority to put in at-grade crossings if the safety study will justify that. And I'm quite confident that it will, in large part because of the success that they've had in San Clemente. And Councilmember Hensy and I have both taken a position that we should be pursuing that San Clemente solution. And I look forward to Rail Pros doing the work that they need to in order to continue to advance this. I think the issues related to the survey that was taken as part of this study, it was a survey monkey. I think it's important to note that that's not scientific. And I think that the reality is that I find it the notion of having additional train horns for at-grade crossings in Leucadia highly objectionable as well. So I'm going to be doing a lot of work to try and ensure that we don't have that, and to work towards whatever is necessary, waivers or any other effort to make sure that the at-grade crossings, if we're successful in getting the CPUC to support them, that they will not have additional train horns. And so I look forward to the start of this study and the work that Rail Pros is going to do. So I will be supporting this item.
Okay, that was a motion, right?
I could make it a motion. I thought, yes.
Okay, maybe Joy will want to second it. We'll see what she wants to say. Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Lyons.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Crayons, for all your hard work to get us to this point in your relationship building, which I think is imperative to the ongoing success. I will second this, and I do have two questions, though, as far as a little bit of time here in discussion, and they're somewhat technical questions. Councilmember Crayons, you did indicate that there would be, in the scope of work as we proceed, the consideration for the quiet zones along with that at-grade crossings, as our public speaker, Tim Bratton, was suggesting. Do I understand that correctly?
I think that the answer is that the study is going to look at the issues related to safety for at-grade crossings. In San Clemente, they have a waiver. It's not technically, a part of a quiet zone per se, but it's a waiver that allows the trains not to sound their horns, and the audible warning system is on the gates, and it's more directed. So it's a little different, but I think Councilmember Hensy has some information about what NCTD is doing with regard to quiet zone work. And I think that it's really important that we let this study get going and the experts dive into this. And I think that we have communicated our desire to have these at-grade crossings and to have them be quiet, and that their expertise in this and their ability to navigate the regulatory agencies is what we need to depend upon. I am not expert in this. I have been developing relationships and been around it for quite some time, but ultimately we need Rail Pros to work with the regulatory bodies to address these issues.
Thank you. I understand we have two crossings in our scope of work, and that's how we're moving forward. And I'm happy about that. But I have gotten some questions about is that enough, and is there a reason why it's only 2? Do you have any history on that you could enlighten me and some of the other folks about the choice of 2 crossings? Or maybe staff does.
I don't know if Jill here. I think my recollection is that it was kind of what they landed on NCTD and the FRA and the CPUC and staff. But, I think that, again, this is something that we would be better off letting rail pros get started. And then we have a lot of cross-connect study work that was done that identified locations for crossings. And, we should be checking in with rail pros occasionally and seeing whether there are opportunities to increase the number. Ultimately, I think that the 2 was landed on because it was more likely to be successful with the regulatory bodies. But
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hensy.
Yes, just a little bit of information to add about this. I was going to give this report during our AB 1234 time, but it's relevant now, so I will go ahead and give it. And it is some encouraging news that NCTD provided board members with last Thursday during our regular board meeting. And it's that the executive director, Matt Tucker, he has heard a lot of information and feedback from many of the cities as part of the NCTD network along the corridor that there's interest in pursuing quiet zones. And so he is suggesting to staff that NCTD themselves cover the cost of a study that would make clear the differences in cost, timeline, and efficiency when 2 different paths are pursued. So he's suggesting that we pursue a regional approach to quiet zones rather than each city going it alone and trying to cover the cost and the extensive work that goes in with permitting that effort with the regulatory bodies. So let me just look at my notes here and make sure that I've got it correct. But it's a study, and the difference between that study and previous studies that the city of Encinitas has undertaken is that there might be more cost savings and a speedier result in the construction of quiet zones if we take a programmatic approach to it. And so his goal is to have, that study kicked off by October. So June 13th, I'll be meeting with NCTD staff and our city staff here to coordinate the efforts that we have underway regarding our funding to design those supplemental safety measures in pursuit of a quiet zone, and how we can best coordinate that with NCTD's new effort to also achieve quiet zones. So I'll have an update following that June 13th meeting, and that's it.
I would add too that Councilmember Hensy, our board rep at NCTD, I watched the meeting that they recently had where they had a gentleman who is expert in the various infrastructure dollar pots that are currently being distributed. And she asked questions about quiet zones and crossings, and I think the responses were favorable. Ultimately, I think that a programmatic quiet zoning of both the coastal corridor and the inland rail corridor through Oceanside Vista and Escondido and San Marcos would be more likely to be viewed favorably for infrastructure dollars if it were a programmatic approach, as opposed to each city trying to compete for that money. So this is all very good news, and kind of it's something that has been a subject of discussion at NCTD for quite some time. I, as you can imagine, have been talking about train horns there for a while, so I was very encouraged to see this happen.
It's very good news that NCTD is wanting to do that programmatic study. It's excellent. Yeah, that would make a huge difference, I think, for every community. So I think that was a motion from Councilmember Cranzen, seconded by Councilmember Lyons.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca,
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. That takes us to item 10A. This item is to hear applicants and make one appointment to the Planning Commission for the Olivenheim representative to fill one unscheduled vacancy with a term ending March 1st, 2023. The City Council at the April 13th, 2022 City Council meeting voted to terminate the term of office for Bruce Ehlers effective immediately. And that did leave this unscheduled vacancy for the Olivenheim representative. The deadline for submitting applications to fill this unscheduled vacancy was May 5th. And we did receive 3 applications. All applicants are registered voters of the city and do reside in Olivenheim. The applicants are Robert Prendergast, who is currently on the Mobility and Traffic Commission, Frederick Snedeker, and Dan Vaughn. So we will hear from each applicant. The first is Robert Prendergast.
Oh, there we go. All right, let me start my speech. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Bob Prendergast, and I'm here today on Zoom as an applicant for the vacant position on Planning Commission representing Olivenheim. As you know, I'm currently a commissioner on the Traffic and Mobility Commission. You have all read my resume and the text of my application, and I have met and spoken with many of you here tonight over the 19 years of my residency here in Olivenheim. My wife and I have been active members in our community since our arrival from Culver City in 2003. Our children have attended OPE and one daughter graduated from SDA. I've coached local soccer teams and refereed local soccer leagues. I've helped with PTA and EEF and the SDA Foundation along the way. I was appointed to the Traffic and Mobility Commission by the City Council in 2021 and have enjoyed working with other commissioners on important issues affecting the entire city, not just Olivenheim. My time on the commission has provided a broad understanding of the issues facing our community. Some issues are nuanced to the local neighborhoods, and some are larger issues spanning the entire city, such as bike and car traffic along PCH from Carlsbad to Solana Beach. I applied to the commission because I believe my 38 years experience as a commercial real estate agent will provide a skill set not currently found on the commission. I have a strong background in real estate finance and understand the perspective of developers and applicants coming before the commission. Development in our community is inevitable as businesses, families, and individuals are attracted to Encinitas for the very reasons we all moved here. Additionally, there are new statewide mandates and laws and regulations that place pressures on the city to provide more housing with less consideration for the impact on infrastructure, including fire, traffic, noise, transit, roads, sewers, and most importantly, our quality of life. I understand how the real estate development is acquired, financed, and constructed. I understand development pro formas and their capitalization and can bring this knowledge to the commission as it reviews and opines on the applications. I'm familiar with zoning ordinances and the CEQA process, which affords me a unique perspective into the projects brought before the Planning Commission. I'm eager to assist the mayor, the city council, and the staff to make Encinitas the model city in the region. And I hope I can find solutions to help our city grow while still preserving our quality of life, our open spaces, and our community character. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Next applicant is Frederick Snedeker.
Hello. Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, this evening I'm responding to a kind of an invitation by the Mayor Blakespear after I'd contacted her regarding a couple of suggestions that I had made regarding traffic control, parking, and of course the development at Encinitas Boulevard and Rancho Santa Fe Road. All these have been controversial discussion points and definitely of interest to all of Encinitas. I'm a resident here in Olivenheim, have been since 1993. I've been a resident of Encinitas since 1975. And throughout my residence in both areas, I'll have to say that I've always found Encinitas, I would say, a cool place and a place of refreshment. And it's always been a diverse area and very open to new ideas, new ways, but also rather quiet and rather restful. It has always been a place I could call home. So those are my interests, and that is to maintain Encinitas, especially Allevenhain, where we live, as a quiet and restful place, someplace that we can all call home. And I certainly appreciate the discussions about the quality of life in Encinitas. That particular quality of life is what attracted me, and it is what made it our home here. And that is a place that has been not so urbanized and much more inviting, open, and friendly. And so I'd like to offer my services to continue that. And I would like an opportunity to continue to make those suggestions, either formally or informally, to the Planning Commission. And if that involves participation, certainly I'm open to it. I hope that the City Council will take that into consideration. I have a long-term involvement in public works. My whole career, 40 years, has been placed in planning and construction and the completion and certification of public works projects, basically schools and healthcare facilities. But that is just a part or a portion of the public works process. I do appreciate that the city recognizes that the value of maintaining the infrastructure and everything is all related to our happiness and our I guess, comfort level with regard development, comfort level with regard our relationships with our neighbors, especially the neighbors through Allevenhain. We have to have I guess, certain amount of growth. We have to have a certain amount of change. We all realize that, but certainly be managed in a very logical way. And basically decisions that I would put forth would be based on evidence, science, and the actual numbers that are necessary to make it responsible, reasonable, and rational decision. So that's my particular input on this. I do appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to make a small presentation.
Thank you. And then Dan Vaughn is unable to attend this evening, but he did provide a video. IT, if you could put that up. And then if you do wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand.
Hi, my name is Dan Vaughn. As a scientist with a PhD from Caltech, I came to San Diego 20 plus years ago as an early employee and key contributor to successful biotech companies. And my wife Betsy and I chose to live in Allevenhain to raise our family. I've been quite involved in our community, volunteering as a sports coach, leading Indian guides and Dreamcatcher campaigns, and helping to lead the local Boy Scout troop. Through our church, I've also been an advocate for social justice. But not being content to just talk the talk, I've also been on the ground, working with our homeless neighbors to build community and connect to deeply needed county services. 5 years ago, I was elected to the OTC Board of Directors, where I've had stints as a secretary, vice president, and 2 years as the president. Through those connections, I've come to know our community very well. With Joe Mosca, I co-led the Rancho Santa Fe Road Task Force and spent over 2 years counseling and educating our community on the options and building consensus for a preferred way forward for public safety and to relieve congestion. I've also partnered with Encinitas Fire and local concerned citizens to establish the Allevenhain Fire Safe Council and participate in community wildfire protection planning. When I was approached by neighbors concerned with the proposed 69-foot Encinitas Boulevard apartment project, I co-founded Encinitas Residents for Responsible Development. Through Encinitas RD, we've advocated for more effective and environmentally sensitive alternatives to R30 zoning and by right development to provide the affordable housing that our city desperately needs. I know that some on the council believe that my involvement with Encinitas RRD's lawsuits against the city to be disqualifying. I disagree. These suits have shown how the city's hands are not tied by HCD and the state. By following environmental laws, the city can mitigate the worst impacts of these by right projects. At a time of divisive partisan hostility, I offer my services as a nonpartisan, pragmatic consensus builder. I'll bring my analytical skills as a scientist and my knowledge of land use policy and law to the Planning Commission. As a transparent and inclusive leader with deep ties to both my community and our city, I can help improve the communication to rebuild trust and collaboration. I urge the council to resist the urge to make this appointment based purely on party affiliation and embrace the messy civic dialogue and debate that leads to robustness in resulting ideas and ownership and buy-in for the residents when they feel involved and heard in the decision-making process. Finally, I want to express my gratitude to the many neighbors who've taken the time to write in support of my selection. It's humbling and invigorating to hear their kind words and appreciation of my service. Thank you.
And then again, if any of the attendees would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand. I do not see any hands raised currently.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
So if you're a member of the public wishing to speak on this topic, then please raise your hand now. And if not, then I'll go to the public or to the council. Okay, Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, we always have such great candidates that applicants, people that residents that put their names forth to serve on our commissions. And with this vacancy, we certainly have three applicants that are three applicants that I know in my community of Olivenhain that passionately want to give back and are involved. And you just heard three of them talk about their involvement over, not a few years, but a commitment over a long period of time, 2 decades at the very least. And so this makes this decision a very difficult decision, as is with all of the commission spots. We always get folks that are, amazingly qualified and are very passionate about giving back to our city. We're blessed in that way that we do have people that want to serve our city and know that volunteering their time is going to make a difference. And so this is a hard decision, but we get paid the big bucks to make some really difficult decisions here on the city council. And so we have to make a decision. And I'm going to put forth the name of Bob Prendergast because I believe that his commitment spells success on this commission, on the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, as you know, is one of the most difficult commissions that we have. It is the most demanding in terms of time. And it is much easier for somebody who already serves on the commission and understands how these commissions work and understands the intensity of the reading that you have to do on this commission, the research, the training that you have to go through, because not only do you have to get up to speed on the rules and laws that we have in the city of Encinitas, but as everybody knows very clearly, there are other agencies such as the state government and the federal government that are now very active in the space of land use. And so it's not just the city, but it's the state and the federal government that you have to look at those rules and laws. And so there's a lot going on here. And I feel that Bob has that commitment. I feel like he has the experience of serving on the commission before. I feel like he has the experience, professional experience, to understand how to basically go about really understanding what the facts are in each particular case that's before him, and working with his colleagues to understand what the rules are that need to be applied, and balancing all of the various interests that need to be balanced to make sure that they're making the best decision that they can make for the city of Encinitas. So I put forth the name of Bob Prendergast for filling the vacancy on the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lenz.
Yes, I want to thank the speakers and the applicants because they're just very well considered and well-spoken candidates. So I appreciate their input. I do want to go a little different direction than my colleague, Deputy Mayor Mosca, because I really feel the emotion of the community surrounding this decision. I know that it's kind of highly charged, and I feel quite compelled to listen to what the community is saying about Dan Vaughn being the candidate they would prefer. And I find it maybe more compelling to ask, and I don't know if our city attorney is prepared to talk about the disqualifying aspect of his application. So that might be a serious impediment there, and I wouldn't want to present him as a candidate with my support unless I feel comfortable with the status of whether he has a whether he's disqualified for some reason.
Arquin, do you want to jump in?
Thank you, Mayor Blakespear. Thank you, Councilmember Lyons. Disqualification has a number of different factors that are involved in analysis. I do not have the full analysis. I do not have the full facts regarding his application, Mr. Vaughn's application, to indicate whether or not there would be a conflict. I can give you some general guidance regarding conflict if that's what the pleasure of the council is.
Does that answer your question enough, Councilmember?
Just some general guidance on conflict then would be helpful.
At point of order, I would just say, Madam Mayor, these are volunteers that step up to serve our community. I don't think that this type of conversation to explore whether or not one has a conflict, this doesn't sit well with me. I just think that these are volunteers stepping up, and I just wouldn't want to basically go down this road because it just doesn't feel well. If you're going to support somebody, support them. If you're not going to support them, don't support them. But I don't think that we should go down the line of asking about conflicts of interest.
Councilmember Lyons, you can say whatever you'd like. That's, so I'll hand the floor back to you. That's Councilmember Mosca's concern.
Okay, I'll just conclude to say that I think the community is in favor of Dan Vaughn, and I'd like to respect that sentiment. And but I also do feel like the community who's reached out and expressed that support perhaps knows Dan the best, and perhaps they don't know the other candidates as well. They all do look like they're very competent. So, but I'm interested in hearing what my colleagues say.
Okay, Councilmember Hinsey.
Yeah, I think I'm tending to side here with Councilmember Mosca's recommendation to appoint Mr. Prendergast to the role. I really appreciate all of Dan Vaughn's engagement and have gotten to know him through his efforts in the social justice community and his involvement with Faith in Action. And I think he's an outstanding person and a wonderful candidate. And I think that he does have a lot of support from the community. I think what Mr. Prendergast brings is an objectivity that would be able to see all of the projects that are coming before us, which is a big value of mine for this role.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll jump in here. So I think Mr. Prendergast brings the right skill set and professional background and lack of other concerning areas. Maybe we don't want to say conflicts, but things that are that cause me pause when we're talking about objectively applying state laws to the city of Encinitas and making recommendations to the city council. So I want to recognize Fred. Fred wrote to me some very detailed emails about suggestions and things, and I recommended that, given his interest in the topic, that he apply for the Planning Commission, and he did. So I appreciate that very much. I recommend people apply for commissions when they write to me about things that interest them, and a lot of times they don't. So I appreciate that he was really interested in being on the commission. And I think, you know, all three of them would bring value and would be good members who were able to do the job extremely well. My vote will be tonight to go with Bob. So did anybody, I think, okay, so Councilmember Mosca made a motion and I'll second your motion. I don't see any other comments, so.
I did want to just say, I apologize to Councilmember Lyons if I came off too strong. I feel strongly about all three of these folks. They are neighbors and community members, and I just think like they are stepping up, and I guess I just didn't want to suggest any kind of any conflicts or anything like that, because I just think that they're volunteers that that are committed to serving, and so I apologize if I was strong there. I want to make sure that we're honoring them in the way that we should be, and so yeah, that's why I said that, because Dan Vaughn and Bob and Fred are all amazing people that have given back, and I think any one of them are qualified to serve, you know, on the commission.
Councilmember Hinsey, did you want to speak again?
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that some of the points that Fred talked about were related to intersections and mobility. And I think that if Mr. Prendergast is appointed, it would open up a spot on the Mobility Commission that I would encourage Fred to apply for as well, if that is his area of interest.
Good point. Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Hinsey?
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
No.
Deputy Mayor Mosca?
Yes.
And Mayor Blakespear?
Yes.
Motion carries with Councilmember Lyons voting no.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
and
you.
then item 10B, which was the continuation of the Jewish Family Service Safe Parking Program, as I mentioned earlier, was removed from the agenda by staff and will be rescheduled for the June 15th City Council meeting. Item 10C and item 10D only appeared on the agenda because they were legally noticed, and those will be have been continued to a date certain of June 15th. So that takes us to item 11A.
Okay, that's the Encinitas Climate Action Plan Annual Report. We're excited to see our Sustainability Manager, Nahara, here with us. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Blakespear and council members, for having me here tonight. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so I'll be going over item 11A, which is an overview of the 2020 Climate Action Plan Annual Report. So the report was completed and published in March 2022. It covers the data year 2020. Takes quite a while to collect all that data for the previous year. And then once it was published, we then translated all of that data and information to our online climate dashboard, and that was updated in April of 2022. The annual report, here, this is a summary of the annual report. It provides the latest greenhouse gas inventory for our community, and it provides an implementation progress summary of the climate action plan. It goes over progress individually by each CAP measure. It summarizes our progress addressing social equity and green jobs, and also looks at climate resilience and coastal adaptation that we completed in that year, and then also takes a quick look ahead to future years. So this is the greenhouse gas inventory that is our latest inventory for our community. These inventories are produced by SANDAG. SANDAG produces all the inventories for all of the cities in our region and the county. And this one is for the data year of 2016. That's the most current data we have, even though this is our 2020 annual report. This is our latest inventory. So as you can see, a little over half of our emissions come from transportation, about 20% from electricity, 14% from natural gas, and then the remainder is from various other sectors. This is roughly the same pie chart that we kind of started with in our climate action plan. So just to give you a sense, and since this is kind of an older data year, it is actually the inventory that we included in our latest climate action plan as well. So we don't necessarily have kind of a comparison of one year to the next, unfortunately. So these are the CAP measures that we have in our city's climate action plan. We have a total of 20 measures in these different strategy areas: building efficiency, renewable energy, water efficiency, and sorry, I'm just clearing my screen here, and clean and efficient transportation, off-road equipment, zero waste strategy, and then carbon sequestration. So of these measures, 7 had been completed by 2020, 11 were in progress in some form, and then just 2 of them were awaiting resources. So there's a complete progress summary in the annual report, and this is just a snapshot of that, an example of what it kind of looks like. There's a table of all of the measures in there that gives you a quick description. It gives you an estimated timeline of when it will be implemented, or if it's already been implemented. It gives you a status of how far along in implementation we are, and then provides some co-benefits for each of the measures. And then the next section of the report actually dives deeper into each of the CAP measures and into more deeply discusses what was accomplished in that year. For example, here we have the example of carbon sequestration, and we were able to report that in 2020, the city planted a total of 196 net new trees. And then if there is enough data for that particular measure, then we will go ahead and do a quantitative graph like you see here, showing all the historical data and then leading up to the latest annual report year that we're reporting in. So this is an example of the cumulative trees that we've planted since 2012. And 2012 is the year that we started collecting climate action plan information. So if we've got data for all those years, that's what we report on all the way back to 2012. So here's a summary of the key accomplishments that were made in 2020 as it relates to the climate action plan. We did a major CAP update. It was technically an interim CAP update, but it was a pretty big overhaul as it related to incorporating our recently completed housing element and our recently completed active transportation plan. And then because of those 2 planning documents, we actually did need to add some additional CAP measures and revise some of the measures to make sure we were meeting our goals and targets. And then we also in 2019 had adopted an ordinance for EV charging, and in 2020 it went into effect. And then we did a lot of work in the community choice energy area, or I should say San Diego Community Power now did a lot of work because they were in their startup phase that year. So the city assisted with that as needed, but what was exciting is that they really kind of took the reins and really got into their startup efforts that year. We also were in development with a bike share program, which now has been implemented and is actively available for use by the community now. There were also many active transportation projects that were in implementation, either in design or in construction during the year 2020. We continue every year to transition our fleet to a zero emission vehicle fleet, and that was continued in 2020. And then lastly, a big effort during 2020 was to continue to further develop our zero waste program. And specifically, the focus in that year was developing our organics program. The next section relates to equity and jobs. We have a component of our CAP that addresses social equity and green jobs. And the 2 highlights that I wanted to make here were as it relates to equitable energy. Since we now have, or the community now has, a choice in energy providers, that makes it more equitable and gives folks more options in terms of their energy choice. And San Diego Community Power does certainly have some social equity goals and some goals to increase green jobs throughout the community, not just in Encinitas, but the entire San Diego region, especially with their goal to increase the amount of renewable energy, especially that locally produced renewable energy that will be adding jobs. Specifically, very locally here in Encinitas, as it relates to green jobs, that bike share program that I mentioned did definitely add some jobs, and also has provides an equitable option for transportation in our community as well. And then climate resilience and adaptation, the key projects that we worked on in 2020 as it relates to these focus areas is just one mention. The Cardiff Living Shoreline was completed in 2019, but in 2020 it received the Best Restored Beach Award, which was exciting to report. And then the Beacons Bluff Restoration Project, that was in design and permitting during 2020. And then lastly, we did receive some sand nourishment at Cardiff State Beach, and that was as a result of the Build NCC project. And then looking ahead, so what is the city doing now? What is staff working on right now and looking at into the future that might soon be accomplished? So we're continuing to work on implementing the green building ordinance. We're also in preparation for future building reach codes that relate that are similar to the green building ordinance. We're also continually designing and installing active transportation projects. We're in the process of developing an EV charging station master plan right now. And we are continuing to do oversight of the B-Cycle bike share program. We're continuing to support the launch of San Diego Community Power. This is the year that all of our customers have been fully launched, and as needed, the city supports that effort as a member city. We're also looking to revamp the Green Building Incentive Program. This is a program that we currently have in operation. It hasn't been analyzed or revised in quite some time, and since we've got some new green building requirements on the books, we're looking to kind of revise and refresh that program to make it more current. And then we're also developing an employee commute incentive policy. And then we're about to kick off our next 5-year cap update. This will take about a year to complete, and it's just getting started right now. And then lastly, of course, we're working on the 2021 cap annual report, collecting the data to be able to do that next report for the next reporting year. And that covers my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there's any.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if there are public speakers. We have 2 public speakers, and then we'll go to the council. So go ahead, City Clerk.
If there are any speakers that wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand now. There are no speakers on this item there.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw 2, but maybe they were.
That's the panelists.
Oh, okay.
Councilmember.
Councilmember Hensy.
Thank you. So Crystal, great presentation, and really we've accomplished so much, and that's in huge part to you and your longevity on our staff and your true commitment and the way that you live your life also in your own personal life. So you and I are participating on a panel for the San Diego Bike Coalition in June. And in preparation of that panel, one thing that we were able to discuss is B-Cycle and the equity efforts, and what more the city might be able to do to increase our equity in our city due to the fact that we have this awesome bike share program here. And so I'm just hoping that we would be able to accomplish something like that. And some ideas that I have, and we don't necessarily have to go in this direction, but the city is working on this employee commute incentive policy for what I assume is our own employees, but perhaps we'd be able to create some type of an incentive program for other employees that have jobs here in the city of Encinitas, that they could use the e-bikes as a way to get to and from their work to commute. And I know that takes a lot of development, but it just seems like it's already in line with the goals that we have. And so just being able to talk with Tim, who represents B-Cycle here and is a wealth of information and knowledge, and get something in the works would be, I think, a really great step for us. And additionally, if we need to get NCTD involved or another partner to help that program even be cross-jurisdictional to reach people in more parts of our corridor, that would be awesome. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can just briefly respond to that, and happy to report that Tim and his team is already in coordination with SANDAG to develop a program very similar to what you're talking about, and something that's potentially able to offer free rides for those that qualify, that may be low income or otherwise needing accommodation to be able to use the bikes. So it's a great idea and something that's already being explored.
That's so great. Thank you for the update.
That is great to hear. Councilmember Lyons.
Yes, thank you. I like to pay really close attention to the CAP and the implementation plan, Crystal, and I always appreciate your new data and your new information. But there's one thing I didn't realize before, and that is the green jobs that are part of what you're presenting here tonight. And so I don't know if you can just informally explain a little bit about what is a green job, how you're using that as a metric, or if not at this point, then maybe follow up with something that provides a little bit more information. I'm sure we've got some businesses that might qualify, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, definitely. And I will share that is one area that that is, you know, I've got to spread myself pretty thin when working on all of this stuff, and maybe not an area that I focus on quite as much. But thankfully, there are other businesses in our city that are very much focused on being sustainable. We had aspirations at one point to develop a green business program. You know, we have to pick and choose the programs that we're able to implement and with the time that we have, but things like that are options. Thankfully, we live in a community where there is a lot of forward thinking on sustainability. So it's nice to have that community support, just like B-Cycle or other businesses that are in the community that are forward thinking. And then also, of course, San Diego Community Power, the fact that they are in our community and are very much forward thinking on green jobs and how they can not only support additional jobs, but bring people into this new industry that's being developed or being transitioned, and how we can support that transition, or how SDCP can support that transition. So there's a lot happening. I'd say that our CAP, you know, it could be a little more well developed in terms of the goals for green jobs. We do what we can with the resources we have, but it could be a little bit more formalized.
That's a great idea. It sounds like it's kind of in its beginning stages. Mm-hmm. I think it could be a whole kind of detailed area in itself. Yeah. I'm interested in it because I think we're a perfect city for attracting green jobs, and I think it really sits with our values very nicely. The idea of having a green business program, I think, supports how we want to move forward as we attract businesses here and encourage the businesses who are here to become more environmentally sustainable. I just want to remind you, you probably know that the Environmental Commission has an environmental award every year, and one of the categories, Environmental Excellence Award, and one of the categories is businesses, and another is nonprofits, and another is individuals. So that's a really good source of information to connect with, as far as looking at who we already have here, who has met a standard of environmental sustainability and resilience that met the qualifications for this Environmental Excellence Award. So I think these things could really grow on each other and support us doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
And one other comment about the master plan for EV charging. I was really excited to hear that we're launching that. And I saw that you had a table at the Arbor Day Festival, Arbor Day program at Cottonwood Creek Park. And I have learned too that SDG&E is looking in that direction as far as their future work. And I imagine that you're coordinating with them on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a couple of programs to provide very much discounted charging stations, and the city has actually taken advantage of that opportunity the first time it came around. And it's called the Power Your Drive program, and the charging stations that we have at Public Works right now were part of that program. So it was I think the estimate was that it was a 95% savings to install those charging stations through that program. We got 10 stations to level 2 charging, 10 level 2 charging stations at Public Works to support our fleet vehicles. And we continually are looking at opportunities to take advantage of ways that we can economically install charging stations. They're not super cheap to install, but when there's a lot of rebates and incentives that either locally or state or federal opportunities, and we're always on the lookout for those.
Great, good work, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, just putting on my San Diego Community Power hat for a second. Just wanted to kind of carry on this conversation about green jobs. Green jobs are incredibly important to San Diego Community Power. It was one of the things that we had talked about as a city in one of the benefits of creating our own community choice energy program. Our community choice energy program right now is generating about just shy of $700 million a year. As we move into 2023 and we see the other member agencies join San Diego Community Power, and we also have further expansion. We'll be heading up toward $1 billion. 90% of that revenue base is for purchasing of power, and we're committed to investing locally and ensuring that we're creating green jobs. Good paying green jobs here locally in the county of San Diego. So we're committed to that, and we're continuing to do our part. And we'll share information with the city of Encinitas so that they know what this program is creating in terms of green jobs in our region. Also sharing information about companies like Flock Freight and others in our city that are power champions and that are launching at 100% clean, renewable energy. And so we'll make sure that we're sharing that information with you as well. The primary reason that I raised my hand is that I wanted to thank Crystal Nazir and her whole staff, the entire team, because it feels like it was a long time ago that we kind of started it down this road, but it wasn't actually that long ago. And we have accomplished so much in a very short period of time. Not the least, but the San Diego Community Power and all of the other things that we've done in terms of green building ordinances and looking at further reach codes. I mean, we've done so much, and we have a great plan for the future. And Crystal has been there from the beginning, helping us along with all of this. I mean, she's just been there at every meeting of San Diego Community Power, helping us. And so I just really appreciate the staff, and especially Crystal, for helping us with this, because without your assistance, a lot of this would not have happened. So thank you so much, and very proud of what we've accomplished to do our part for what is an existential threat of climate change. So thank you so much.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kranz.
Joe, you missed an opportunity because you were talking about your San Diego Community Power hat. You should have said San Diego Community Power cap. You should have to wear a cap when you're commenting on the cap, the climate action plan. So I'm wearing my cap tonight, and I'm proud of Surfy and all that we have done for the environment with our climate action plan. When I was looking at the presentation, the part about trees was the one that caught my eye the most, because it started in 2012. And I remember being at a city council meeting as a spectator when Elizabeth Taylor, an environmental commissioner, was presenting on the cap. And it was not, the climate action plan idea was not very well received by that council. And then Lisa Schaefer and I were elected, and we did make it a focus. And we, in fact, we're really focused on our urban forest, and I think the results are reflected very well right there. So very, very pleased at all the work that's been done by city staff and our community. Our community has embraced this as well. And so I'm proud of the work that's been done. The only thing that I would like to add at this point is that as we look at active transportation plans, and as we work hard to get people to mode shift and get on their bikes, and especially their e-bikes, we really need to follow up with some safety programs that are going to address some of the issues that have developed with the with the number of young people that are riding bikes. I see Carlsbad has been pretty aggressive with that in terms of new ordinances, new safety programs. We do have Christine Schindler. She's, a champion and working really hard. And I appreciate the Bike Coalition and the work that they're doing. It's not like we're doing nothing, but I think we really need to focus on that so that we can continue the trend away from using automobiles and getting people on bikes instead. So I too want to applaud all the effort that's gone into this and encourage a kind of redoubling of efforts to kick this into overdrive so that we can meet our goals sooner rather than later. There's nothing, it's very challenging to stay focused on this because it seems like, there are some big countries around the world that are not paying attention to this issue, but it's important to think globally but act locally. And so again, I applaud all the efforts of our community and look forward to continued efforts to implement our climate action plan. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Moscow, is your hand back up?
No, it's lower.
Okay. Well, thank you, Crystal. You've received a lot of accolades. And you've heard them from me before too. So yes, they're all repeated. I think we should move from this item. I don't think there's a vote. It's just an update.
Oh, just an update.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. Well, thank you, everybody. Let me go back to wherever we are. Yes, we're on the Homeless Action Plan update. So thank you. We're on to 11B. Christian?
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, City Council members. I'm here this evening to do a Homeless Action Plan update. Give me 1 second while I share my screen. There we go. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. So the Homeless Action Plan, it was adopted by City Council in February 2021, February 24th, 2021. And the HAP is organized into 3 main parts. So reviewing the needs of those experiencing homelessness, addressing homelessness in Encinitas, and also Homeless Action Plan goals and action items. So the purpose of the action plan is to understand the needs of those experiencing homelessness and what current efforts within the community are available for them. So this is a community snapshot of the different outreach engagement opportunities that are going on in the city. We have a street outreach, we have engagement activities, we have a safe parking program, temporary housing programs, and rapid rehousing. And this is all through the community, some partnered through the city, and some as part of the nonprofit work that's happening here in the city. I wanted to go over the point in time count. This is the newest numbers. We got the 2022 numbers. I do want to make a note that if you look at the graph, 2021 does not show. In 2021, Regional Task Force on Homelessness decided to cancel the point in time count due to COVID-19 health concerns. But if we look at the seven-year trend, we have been trending on the lower end in terms of sheltered and unsheltered individuals. In 2022, there was a total of 113 people experiencing homelessness in Encinitas. Of those 113, 76 were unsheltered. And so, like I said, the number has fluctuated between a very low of 63 in 2020 to a very high of 125 in 2018. Now, 113 experiencing homelessness, now that is broken down in 2 sections, so sheltered and unsheltered. Sheltered are via the motel voucher program, which were 12, and 25 represented through the safe parking program. The 76 that were unsheltered were individuals found during the point in time count. Now, the total of 113 of experiencing homelessness in Encinitas represents about 1.35% of the total homeless population of San Diego County. The total population of the county, of San Diego County, was 8,427. That includes sheltered and unsheltered individuals. So the current investments to address homelessness from the city, we have the Community Resource Center, who has 4 kind of different programming funds: a homeless prevention and intervention fund, our Opening Doors program, our integrative services, and a food and nutrition component. And all of these investments are administered by the city, but range from state funding, city funding, and then general fund, city funding, and CDBG funding. Interfaith Community Services receives some CDBG funds, and this is a collaboration that offers short-term housing solutions, case management, and also some funds for additional staffing, PPE during the pandemic. Going right into the continued efforts, the Encinitas Habitat Stewardship Program and the Private Property Cleanup Action Program. This is a kind of a lesser known program, but it is used in the community to perform trash cleanups, encampment removals, graffiti, invasive plant removal, and fire abatement. Now, the Encinitas Habitat Stewardship Program is for specific identified protected areas in the city, and the Private Property Cleanup Action Program agree to allow the city to intervene in terms of encampment cleanups and removal, and it's on a 50-50 shared expense for that trash and encampment removal. Finally, the HOPE team and CDBG caseworker collaboration, which amounts for $162,000, and those are CDBG funds. And the HOPE team, they provide outreach services to individuals experiencing homelessness or the at risk of homelessness in the community throughout Encinitas. So some of our regional efforts and partnerships. So with the County of San Diego, of course, we have our HOPE team, and that is a social worker who is part of the outreach team. We also have the Regional Task Force on Homelessness. They serve as the continuum of care and lead in the region. They're basically the responsible party for HMIS, which is our reporting system for most outreach that's conducted in the county. And they advise on best practices, standards, and new policy that may be coming down the line for cities to kind of be ready for. In the region, we have a Alliance for Regional Solutions. This is a robust membership of 60 nonprofits, 8 North County cities, and the County of San Diego. And we participate in monthly meetings. There's a range of meetings depending on the different memberships, but they have a robust background and are a great resource to cities looking to maybe transition into a shelter and need specific focus. The members of this group represent a lot of different backgrounds that can support the work that's getting done in the North County for the work on homelessness. And then finally, the North County Homeless Action Committee, and this is a collaboration of city staff that creates kind of a sub-regional effort. We communicate with each other as staff, we analyze best practices, we share resources. There's been developments of other similar like homeless action plans. This a lot of the communication with other cities was, what did you do to create a homeless action plan? So there's that kind of collaboration and trying to focus our efforts in a unified front. So some homeless action plan activities that we currently have, and I wanted to start with this from the homeless action plan goal 1, action item 3 is creating community work groups. And so the first community work group we created was the HAP, the Homeless Action Plan Community Work Group. And this group is developing action items for engagement opportunities, creating multimedia outreach materials, and to receive homeless action plan updates. So this group is members of the community, including healthcare organizations, local nonprofits, faith-based organizations, Mayor Costa College, residents, and a business representation via the 101s. The city internal work group is identifying best practice approaches for efforts in homelessness services and encampment responses and community feedback. And that's an internal work group, and that includes our Parks and Rec staff, fire, sheriff, code enforcement, and public works. And what I'd like to highlight is that all of these departments are doing work with homelessness, and they're engaging with individuals in the community. And so we are trying to come together to ensure that our responses to the community in terms of encampments, in terms of cleanups, in terms of homelessness is a unified one. And we learn how to process, we learn how to create a great process that works for us, where we're most efficient and we're not part of any sort of delay in response. So collaboration continues with RTFH quarterly meetings, as well as the monthly North County Work Group meeting. As I mentioned, this isn't necessarily an identified homeless action plan goal, an action item, but it is definitely important, and why I wanted to add it here, that we continue to be a part of the conversation in the region. We need to know what grants and funding opportunities and regional updates are coming, so that we can prepare to pivot for opportunities that may soon be approaching. Reviewing transitional and shelter bed capacities. This is examining the capability of increased shelter capacity within the city limits, or collaborate in an effective way with the North County region and the County of San Diego to create more shelter capacity. An additional one is our central information tracking system. So this is creating a data share system on the effectiveness of city homelessness programming. I'll speak a little bit more about this in detail in the next slide. So kind of looking at next steps in terms of the goals and action items we have. So starting at the top in the community engagement, this being with the Homeless Action Plan Community Work Group, is participating in community events, whether that be fairs or farmers markets, collaborating city staff with organizations that can provide an opportunity to explain what resources exist and also receive feedback from the community. We're also working on a workshop series that would go through the summer, and we have identified it to be a mental health focused workshop series. We're in our initial conversations with the county behavioral health department to be able to host those. So we're looking forward to that in the summer. Additionally, creating education materials that we can provide via the different partners in the work group, as well as when we do community events or community workshops. And all of this is going to help us improve our community feedback participation. I think more participation out in the community is going to allow us to get more feedback, what's working, what's not working, and what the community wants to see more of. The next one is identifying, collect, and utilize data. So this is very important. The only way we're going to improve our programming is by collecting the data that tells us it's working. So using HMIS and 211 data We want to use that data to adopt greater program performance objectives. So that is, what is the greatest need that's being identified in this data? Do we have programming here in the city that caters to that? And if not, what do we need to do to change that? We're doing that on a smaller scale with the programs that we have here, but we need to look broader via HMIS and 211 data to make sure that we're aligning our resources to the greatest need. And also providing homeless program quarterly data metrics on the city website. And this is more for transparency for the community. So they're able to see on a quarterly basis the numbers of the programs that are being, that are through the city of Encinitas. So I'm working with IT right now to create a page that will tell the story of the data in the best way and shine light on the effectiveness of our programs, and also, you know, open the dialogue to the community if they want to see more of a certain resource. So in enhancing healthcare access, this one is something that, due to COVID, it was more challenging for the region to provide healthcare access, because a lot of the hospitals and clinics were closing off to the general public, or it was very difficult to find appointments. So we want to increase our partnership here with our local healthcare providers, and also coordinate with our regional healthcare partnerships to provide more mobile walk-in services, and that's general medical services, mental health, and dental. And those are happening intermittently, but we want to create an opportunity where it's happening more frequently on a monthly basis, maybe on a bi-monthly basis, or bi-weekly basis, excuse me. Increasing the housing authority housing choice vouchers. So what we would like to do is, and we've started our conversations with our HUD rep to increase our housing voucher capacity 5 to 10%. We currently manage 110 vouchers, 99 of those being Encinitas housing choice vouchers, and 11 of them being port-ins from other housing authorities. But we'd love to see a 5 to 10% increase. We have a wait list that it would be very helpful for a lot of members in the community that live and work here. Lastly, is I want to mention the developing a shelter option in Encinitas. So this is identifying locations for a potential shelter, identifying funding opportunities, and exploring potential shelter partners to provide the case management. Now, we have identified certain locations in the city for potential shelters, but the actual potential of space isn't quite there yet, but we have identified areas in the city of Encinitas that can host in the future a shelter. So we continue to dig into this and hope that we can kind of align these three points so that we can open a shelter here in Encinitas. So now I'm going to go through our program numbers. So I'll start with Opening Doors. So Opening Doors is a program that assists those individuals in the community to secure permanent housing. There's an assessment process which leads to determining what integrative services they need so that they can get set up for success and obviously potentially get to the secure housing. So there have been 133 participants in FY 21-22, and 21 have been housed. The Safe Parking Program, the Safe Parking Program has served 130 households since its inception, and that's since February 2020. It has housed 33 and has connected 25 to housing via family reunification. a homeless prevention and intervention fund. This is a fund that provided flex funds, so it made it much easier to be able to provide deposits, renters insurance, transportation, and moving assistance. So assessments were 124, homeless prevention was 22, housing intervention 113, and housing placements 37. And our temporary emergency motel voucher program, this program concluded in March 22, but it had a total of 20 participants. 9 households were housed, 2 participants were connected to long-term health living facilities, and 3 are continuing to work with case managers through the CRC to locate permanent housing solutions. And last but not least, the HOPE team. So they've outreached in fiscal year 21-22, 225 individuals, and they've housed 63, which I just wanted to spotlight as a tremendous accomplishment for the fiscal year. Thus far, it's not quite done yet, but as of April, this 63 individuals have been housed. So that concludes my presentation. I wanted to leave my information here for anybody in the community that wanted to outreach or if they had any questions, specific questions regarding the Homeless Action Plan.
Okay, thank you, Christian. Do we have any public comments on this item?
There's 2 attendees still present. If you'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand. Does not look like we have any speakers on this item, Mayor.
Okay, great. Then I'll go to Councilmember Kranz.
Somebody's sharing their screen. Kind of odd. Thank you, Christian, for the presentation. And I think that, you know, by and large, it's quite a success. So I appreciate that. There were a couple of slides that caught my interest. One was the slide 4, which has the point in time counts for the last since 2015, and there has been a point made that there's a big bump percentage-wise in the number of homeless people in our city, and yet I think this graph demonstrates that the city's homeless population has been pretty constant, with the exception of that point in time count in 2020. So I think that it's important that we keep that in mind, that there has been over the years a fairly constant population of homeless people in our city, and I'm not saying that that's good. I'm just saying that it's a vexing problem that we are doing some good work in and working to get that addressed. So my expectation is that the next point in time count is going to reflect that effort. So I appreciate that. You mentioned that the motel voucher program ended in March, and I'm wondering then, is the county still using local hotels for any vouchering, or is that all discontinued as well?
So in terms of the programming that existed, no. Does the county still have flex funds to provide motel vouchers for transitional stay? Yes. So always motels will be used as a tool. This was a long-term kind of stay. I think what you see in the community is maybe a 2 to 3 night stay as they're transitioning to a long-term shelter or into housing.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. It sounds like you're somewhat familiar with some of the complaints that have been raised with regard to that program. So you answered that well. I think the other thing I'd like you to speak to is, you know, your position is relatively new, and I've seen the work that you've been doing. I wonder if you could speak to just how often you get out with the social worker from the county and get to know the homeless population here in Encinitas.
So I would say when I first started this position, I didn't imagine that I would have a lot of opportunity. What's happened as I've become more comfortable in the role and you start collaborating with, you know, Parks and Rec staff, Public Works staff, code enforcement, especially the HOPE team. We'll go out, meet with Caltrans, you know, walking into certain right-of-ways or going to maybe high fire areas where we want to like look into to see if there's any encampments that exist. So there's been many times where I do go out in the community and with the HOPE team specifically, or maybe just with the Parks and Rec staff where we're going to a park and reviewing kind of certain areas and we interact. I'm starting to know names of some of the community members and always trying to connect them to services. So yeah, I try my best to get out there and get to know the folks that are experiencing homelessness. And, you know, I come across them even just in a walk too, and we're always trying to connect to services. Yeah, there's a great collaborations in this city. So it's hard not to meet a lot of people, and then you kind of see them around town, and it's nice to acknowledge and I try to help them.
Fantastic. Our maybe the city manager could speak to this. We occasionally get emails with photographs attached saying, "Hey, this homeless camp here and this homeless camp there." Is My Encinitas app set up to report homeless encampments?
Yes, absolutely. And also, actually, Christian would probably be the best to kind of explain what happens when that goes into My Encinitas app or Director Sapau.
Yeah, so I talk a little bit about that. So depending on how folks do it, you can also go online and do a request, and it goes through a 301 system. And this is for housing specifically. That goes to code enforcement.
I believe, Christian, the council member was asking about photographs of people in distress on the street, not necessarily somebody who's just inquiring about housing.
So when those come across, what will happen is those get routed. Those will get routed to the correct department. So I wouldn't get that. If someone was under distress, I wouldn't get that. We would either communicate that with them to contact sheriff immediately, or we would make our own contact to sheriff. But yeah, if it was like an emergency situation, and I'm not sure, I may still be misunderstanding the question. Sorry.
No, I think that answers it. I think that the most important thing is that the My Encinitas app does have the ability to for members of the community to call attention to concerns that they have, and it'll get routed to the right person to take whatever action is necessary based upon what's been submitted. So I appreciate that. One last question that I have is, you know, you alluded to the notion of building a shelter in the city, and obviously that's a controversial issue, but I think that it's important to connect the challenges that we have with people that are unsheltered on the street, encampments, whatever the case may be, and the ability for social workers or sheriff's deputies to you know, provide that key, which is the shelter. Without that, then there are limitations on what can be done. Is that correct? Did I say that right?
Yeah, I mean, there are limitations because, and this is something that, you know, we've reviewed, and there's other jurisdictions that have the same challenges. Having a shelter in town would be incredibly helpful for us. It would create an opportunity to move folks that are found on the streets into a safe environment and connect them to the correct integrative services. And that's ultimately what we want. Not having a shelter here is, yeah, it's more of a detriment than not.
Thank you for all your efforts.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's try to wrap this up. Councilmember Hensy.
So I just have two questions, and then one is a success story that I wanted to share.
So my first question is, the Habitat Stewardship Program works really well for our public spaces, but the one that you mentioned for private spaces, do we have a big interest in private property owners reaching out to us and asking us to collaborate in that way? And if we do have that interest, do we also have the funding to support the need that our community has?
So as of right now, I haven't received interest. But as I'm working, especially with the private property project right now, I am seeing that there's certain properties that maybe have been lost in the shuffle or just haven't been proactive in terms of us needing to do work there. And so of the $30,000 that we have, 10,000 of that is for the PP cap. And so I feel like that may not be enough in the long term, but I think the data that we're collecting as we're doing the good work right now with our cleanups and mitigations, it'll be able to identify more potential need for funding, and also maybe then you see a demand you see more interest in participation in the program.
Got it. Thank you. And then the second question is, in 2020, I participate in the count as much as I can, and every year you hear some reason why there might be a fluctuation from the year prior. This year it was that it was really cold and temperatures were below average for that time of year. So additional shelter options had been opened up for folks. In 2020, are we aware of any factor which might have decreased the number in our city that made it so that it wasn't consistent with years prior?
So 2020 had a similar experience. It was done in January. So there was a higher shelter number. It's significantly lower in Encinitas. So I don't know what was going on in Encinitas at that time. And I was trying to research if something specifically was happening in this region, but I couldn't identify why it stood out so much comparatively with the other ones, because they're all pretty much on average the same, we're close to. But I know that 2020 was another winter, very cold night, and the winter shelters are all open at that time. When we went this time around, some winter shelters either were full or they were done. We had it was just like a weird cold week,
oh, that's right. And also it was later than usual this year.
Yeah, it was in March.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you for answering that question. So then I also wanted to make the point that when we brought forward the Equity Committee's recommendations, one of the recommendations was for the Public Health and Safety Commission to be established. So a lot of the work that you're already doing to internally coordinate departments within our city and also to do this outreach that you're doing is part of the work that I hope that this commission will be able to take up, because there is the interest there. And there are also so many issues of equity that come to bear within the unhoused folks of our community. So that's just a comment. And then I did just want to share that for over a year, there has been an HOA in my district that's been struggling with an encampment. And it's been a really persistent and painful issue for a lot of folks that live in this HOA. And so I finally met with the whole HOA just earlier this month, and Christian was on the call, and we had Lieutenant Norton from our North Coastal Station on the call. And the folks with this HOA were so happy with the level of responsiveness provided by Christian and the Hope team working in tandem with our sheriff's department, that it was a really pleasant meeting. And to me, it was a sign that we are working together, that every city department is engaged on this, and that there's solutions that we can reach when we put our resources together, our heads together, and have somebody like Christian who is the face and is responsible for making sure that we address those things. So that was a really great, success story that I think has come in the last couple of years because of our HAP, our homeless action plan, and hiring the staff that can support it. And then just the last point on that is that it was an encampment, it was removed, it was disassembled. And to Christian's point of needing a shelter, I think the only way we stop that revolving door and this being a persistent issue for different parts of our city is being able to establish a shelter where we can offer folks the option to come inside
and not just be moved to another place in our city. So huge thanks to you, Christian, for getting so involved in that issue and for helping solve it for now and to put in some long-term protocols that will hopefully keep it from happening again.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that information about your experience there, Kelly. Councilmember Hensy. It's good to know. And I also just want to say, I do think we do need to talk about having a shelter and basically make a plan for one. I know, there's always this desire to have it be regional or somebody else, or we buy space in someone else's, but ultimately I think every city's really, just like we have responsibilities to provide opportunities for low-income housing, the very, very, bottom of the housing scale are people who are unhoused, and having that be provided in cities, I think is something that's really important, and will help us to solve for the problems that we see. So anyway, I don't see any other hands up. So I think we're done with this item. Thank you so much, Christian.
Is Roy raising his hand?
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, just to follow up on Council Member Krantz' comment about my Encinitas, what I would encourage the community to do if they have any concerns or complaints related to encampments or any homelessness issues, to use the My Encinitas app, as that is the most efficient resource and tool where we do have staff designated to track or monitor My Encinitas so that we can quickly respond to concerns that are coming through that tool. So I would just want to put a plug in and encourage the community to utilize that tool. It's a great resource for reporting concerns related to homelessness and encampments. So thank you.
Thanks for adding that in. I was hoping there would be a clear answer to that question he asked. So thank you. Okay, well, thank you so much, Christian. We really appreciate all your work. And we will move to the next thing, which is anybody who wants to give an AB 1234 report. If you do, jump in. Kelly.
Not a report related to my outside committees, but I just wanted to thank my council members, my fellow council members, for approving my 60 days leave for maternity purposes in the months of August and September. And a special thanks to Councilmember Lyons, who's going to be my alternate on NCTD and North County Dispatch and the Shoreline Preservation Working Group. And I just really appreciate you taking on that extra role while I'm gone. And, I am not leaving for the next 2 months. And so any community members who want to reach out for a meeting between now and then, now would be the time. And, my biggest goal is that we just continue to move along a lot of these rail issues. And so I can count on Tony for that, even though he's not the rep at NCTD. And I know Joy, who's already been attending those meetings as my alternate to listen and see how things work, will be really effective at that. So that's it. Thank you.
Yes, well, we hope that the birth is smooth and that you're able to recover. I mean, 60 days seems small to take actually as a maternity leave, and so you let us know if you need more time.
I will. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that, for your comments. And anyone else? I don't see. Okay, city manager or city attorney or city clerk report. Nope. Okay, city attorney report.
I have no report this evening, Madam Mayor.
Okay, city clerk report.
The only item I have is that with the appointment of Mr. Prendergast to the Planning Commission, we will have a vacancy on the Building and Traffic Commission for the Olivenheim representative. So I will get all of that posted tomorrow.
Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, well, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.